not like having a freestanding garage with
Right.
a living space above it.
So does everyone agree we've met that requirement?
Yes.
Yep.
It's not a unit that he's creating, so, yep.
A setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is subject to the appeal. Everybody's good with that. No setback reduction appeal may be granted that will result in impervious surface lot coverage of greater than 15%. And I think we had on there was no concern that I could see from that. Hang on one second. We'll get
Well,
to-
you got a double lot there, so.
Right, I know the total on
Well,
the,
that too, and he's not creating any impervious because he's following in the gravel
in the
footprint.
gravel, yeah. With the
So, which
current.
is already impervious.
Gotcha, thank you very much. So there's no new.
Mhm.
Should we put anything in there about, putting in asphalt at a future date, or?
No,
it
I don't
has to
think you wanna
remain
get into
gravel?
that. That's more of a financial burden to have put in. I mean, asphalt would be great, yes, it keeps the runoff, but reclaim can do it, but I
Well,
don't
it could
think.
make it worse too, because it would,
Well, it can, but it all depends on what's in set. That's kind of why I don't think you'd really want to get into whether or not he has to put asphalt on it or not.
Hang on, let me just capture gravel. No, new, impervious. Okay. And I normally am not supposed to open it back up, and I know we've gone back and forth with this, but I really want to make sure we can try to make all sides happy with this. So I apologize to the board, but I am kind of violating our rule of, did you have one more comment about that, sir?
I guess I'm wondering about the person that does the proposal for the drainage. What kind of, I know you said
Licensed?
license. I guess I'm questioning what that actually
Would that go
means.
through you, Scott?
Well, it could be anybody. It could be a lot of times landscapers are licensed in the same, can do the same thing as rather than having an engineer look at it. They deal with the same issues. And so I figured it was best that we left it, give him a kind of little bit of an open area as to what he can do or who he can contact with, as long as they are, a lot of these are licensed.
Don't they have to be licensed for erosion control?
They have to be certified.
Certified?
But that's more on what they're supposed to do while they're working the land.
Yeah, right,
So not so
right.
much
So not
as-
so much the end result.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay?
Sure.
I mean, and then I go back to engineer, you know, I
Okay,
wouldn't-
and I would just like to share that one of the board, I'm Diana Martin. Sorry,
you.
I'll sign me in again. One of our board of directors and a resident in our neighborhood is an actual engineer, licensed and working for Woodward and Curran in Portland. And he is readily available to both Mr. Aspinall and Mr. Davis. We have that, they have that accessible to them.
Thank you. I don't know if we can dictate. a
Yeah, who you have to
No.
go
Person
see.
at this
No.
point.
he would be useful though
Yeah.
to oversee.
Yeah, I mean, Woodward and Curran, I mean, I've worked with them before when I was in Gorham. They are very, very good. If they have that ability, that's great.
But I don't think it's for us.
I wouldn't,
though.
yeah, I think you'd just leave it open, and
Yeah.
if that's who they use, then great.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, that's a great suggestion. You guys heard that, so that's open for, but as we've said, a licensed professional, so. I mean, I don't know that we can have you review the plan or make sure that it's a proper licensed professional that does
Well,
this.
I mean, you could have them, they could submit a plan for runoff. They can do that.
Erosion control
Yeah.
plan to you.
Yeah.
I hate to put more on you.
Oh, no, it's just more of just having somebody's got to draw it out and
Yeah.
going through all that. It's as an expense, but
Would that help you, Mr. Aspinall, if we had him as a third party to see what this plan is and make sure it's a licensed professional that's drawn it up?
Joanne, the other thing is it would be in the file to refer to in
Yes.
the future.
Yep,
Well, I'd want it anyway, even if it wasn't one prior to, but if we had one at the end because of the condition that was put on it.
this will all be written up, Mr. Davis, just so you understand, but again, it would be for Scott to see the plan from the licensed professional.
Yeah, so I do like safety for a living, fire alarms, things like that, so I live in the world of codes and permits and everything else, I have no problem with any of that.
Great, okay. Thank you all for your help. That's really good. Setback reduction appeals may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following absolute minimums. And what we're talking about is the side setback of 10 feet. So there has to be, at a minimum, the 10 feet between the two. Do we need to, he had said 12 could be cutting it close. Do we have, we should specify?
Yes, you do need to specify what amount.
Yeah.
You should.
Do we want to say the 12 and,
I mean, on here, you got 11.6, I think it says.
yeah,
I believe
So-
Mr. Flynn said that he would come out and check it too,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah, Chris said he was, Chris Flynn, the surveyor who did all the drawings.
Yeah, so we could get, you could get very, you could do, I mean,
Yeah.
and you could do the minimum that you guys feel comfortable
so
with.
the absolute minimum that we could set it to is,
Well, you can go all the way down to 10 feet, but he's only asking for
right,
a setback of 11, was it 11.8 was in there?
11.6 is what's
Yeah.
in there, basically.
But you
That
could do,
measurement didn't-
but you can do like 11.8 or 11.10 or something like that to keep it rounded and however you want to. I mean, as far as being the minimum.
Could you do 11.5 feet?
that's going to say 11 and a half to make sure that there's no
Yep.
issues.
That still gives me about 6 inches.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's my fault, I'm talking to
Sorry,
Mary.
could you
Yeah.
please do 11.5 feet then? That way, that gives me approximately 6 inches of wiggle, just, I'm not trying to push the limits, I just don't wanna get to a point where we're arguing over.
Right, and I didn't want to go to
Facial
10 if we
or
don't
something.
need to, that's what I'm saying, to the minimum extent.
Yeah.
And I always know sometimes things are a little bit off there, so are you guys comfortable with 11 and a half?
I am.
Down to 11 and a half,
To 11 feet,
11
6
point.
inches.
okay.
Thank you.
So set that reduction to 11.6, okay. Is everyone good with that, 11.6?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 0. With that, we had 4-0 on all and 3-1 on one. With that, the board will vote to grant your setback reduction. And we need to have a vote on that. So all those in favor of granting based on what we went through? All those opposed, so that would be 4-0. Because how it would work is we would have to find against these, whereas we didn't have any majority on those. We have to have all in favor on all of those, and that's how it came out with the vote, Mr. Aspinall. So with that, you did meet the requirements, and we have the conditions that we'd read. Any last comments?
No.
Questions? Okay.
They probably should have, did anybody ask that we bring it to a vote and then you vote?
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that would be appropriate. That's why we've gone all over the place.
I'll
Anyone
make
like
a motion that we bring it to a vote.
Okay, second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor of granting the setback reduction to Mr. Davis? All those opposed? Thank you very much, Scott, for keeping us in line. Okay. That ends the application. Thank you very much for all your comments. We really appreciate it. It was very helpful. Okay, for the board.
Can I ask
And-
one question? How
Yes.
does the process go from here? Will you be writing something out and contacting
Yes, they'll have a decision, then it has to be registered at the Registry of Deeds in Portland.
Okay, so can I
And-
just come see you, say next Tuesday?
How long does that, for that to be written up, I don't know.
I'm not, Joanne usually does the planning.
As far as the findings
Yeah,
of fact, I'll
facts.
get them done right away,
Yeah, I
so
don't
that you
do
could
that.
have
I'm not-
something for next week.
Remember, I won't be in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll work on them this week, and like before, once they're done, you guys can read them and go in and sign them off, so that we could have something.
I mean, I could give you a call as soon as I get them.
I was gonna say, if I just keep
Yeah.
communication with you over
Yeah.
and then,
Okay.
right, perfect, thank you.
Yep, no problem, thanks. So with that, any of you that would like to leave or would like to stay, it is totally your choosing. Next on the agenda, to approve the findings of fact from the Roma Dobson decision that we had.
Is everybody a copy?
Good with that?
I don't think I do.
You don't have a copy?
Maybe I don't.
You guys all got a copy of the, did you get a copy to read of the draft?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I sent you, emailed it out.
I did.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'd like one, thank you. I didn't bring it.
And we can go through it.
You have one there?
I wasn't here for that.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yep.
right.
I
I
wasn't
did.
here, yeah.
Make me read. Okay.
Eh,
Anybody else need a copy?
No, I do have one. Okay,
And
that's good.
I know Louise had a few things, they were very good, and Len, I can give you time to look it over. As we go through these, you can look it over too, to see if you have any concerns, questions, comments. We can read it, whatever makes you more
I'll be
comfortable. Louise, do you wanna read yours, or you want me to just go through them?
No, just go through.
Okay.
I mean, they're nitpicky, but
No, they're very good. On the page where I had the background, first paragraph, down near the bottom of it, where it says an abundance of off-road parking is available. I think it was very astute for Louise to pick that up. I think my intention was to put what the background that the applicant presented, and the way that's worded is inappropriate, because we did not determine that there was an abundance of off-road parking for that. So I'm thinking that we scratch that whole last sentence. So that paragraph, I'll read it. On Monday, June 24th, 2019, the Raymond ZBA held a public hearing on a conditional use permit in the rural residential zone. Mr. Roma and Ms. Dobson own, did I get that backwards? Is that right? Own the Roma Farm, which includes a farmhouse and barn built in the 1800s. They purchased the property in 2002 and have been renovating while keeping all of the original structure of the barn in the process. They would like to hold a few seasonal events from July to the first week of October: bridal showers, weddings, wedding renewals, birthday parties, each year at the property as additional income. The capacity would range from 30 to 140. The barn can hold 30 to 65. Large outside tent for larger groups. And then I think my last sentence was an abundance of off-road parking is available on the 45 acres combined between the abutting two properties the applicants have purchased. I'm not sure that's even necessary, because it has an opinion piece in it of what they stated, so I think we could remove that whole sentence.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'll strike that. Then it's just the facts of what their application was about. Then we have about the site walk. I think there was anything with that one. Fourth paragraph, let me get to,
nothing.
under board comments discussion. Fourth paragraph, so that would be under, next to last page, where it says board comments discussion. Here, go to, you got it?
Okay.
Pollution, where it says Louise expressed concern about various types of pollution. I think, Louise, you wanted to change that to mean audio pollution and possible light pollution.
Yep.
Yep. So I have no objections. Anyone, you have any objections to adding that in, Len?
No.
Okay. Add audio and light pollution. Light pollution. Okay, seventh paragraph. which is right, the last paragraph. Where it says the events, midway down, the events the applicants would hold would be private, and I had invite only. Just to clean it up, I think Louise, you'd suggested we change that to invitation only.
Right.
Yep. And the last sentence, Louise agreed and added it also yeah, that was a typo, municipally owned, that we should put, it
Dis-
might also mean municipally owned, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll throw might in there. And Mary, I can make those corrections and send it in.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I can, because I've got them right here. So what I'll do, you guys, I'll make those exact corrections that we spoke about. I'll send it in to Mary and I'll let you know when it's there. She can go in and sign it.
Okay.
And I'll try to get the other one done real fast, and maybe we can do both at the same, so you can go in and do both at the same time. And it'll be you reviewing. The only problem, you'll have to review the other one and send me recommended edits. We'll see what we have to do from there.
Yep.
That sounds good? Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's good. For bylaws workshop, I think all we really wanted to do was, because we haven't had an opportunity as a fairly newer group together, I don't think I ever have since I've been on this board, is just read through the bylaws, just so we know what they are, and maybe point out some future if we feel we need to make any changes to them. Does that, thank you. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep. Yep, it's
Do
good.
that? Rick? Would anyone else like to read these?
I can
Yeah.
read it if you want.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Louise, that'd be great.
Article 1, Purpose and General Provisions. Section 1, the purpose of these bylaws is to provide written rules of procedure for the Town of Raymond Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA. Section 2, the ZBA derives its authority from 30 MRSA, Section 4963-2, Article 6 of the Raymond Land Use Ordinance, and Section 16, Administration G, Appeals of the Raymond Shoreland Zoning Provisions. Article 2, Membership. Section 1, appointment to and composition of the ZBA is governed by Article 6, Section A of the Town of Raymond Land Use Ordinance. Section 2, in order to maintain the status of a member in good standing, all members are required to attend both regularly scheduled and special meetings. Absence for more than 2 consecutive meetings without notification to the ZBA chairperson will be cause for disciplinary action as outlined in Section 4 of this article. Section 3, it is strongly encouraged that all members attend as many meetings, workshops, and trainings as possible in order to gain experience and insights into the operational procedural workings of the ZBA. This is especially important for new members. Section 4, the ZBA chairperson shall recommend to the Town of Raymond Board of Selectmen the dismissal of any member of the ZBA unable to maintain the status of a member in good standing. The ZBA member may be dismissed for cause by the municipal officers before the expiration of the member's term. Article 3, Election and Responsibilities of the ZBA Chairperson. Section 1, the ZBA shall annually elect for their membership a chairperson to preside at all meetings. This election will take place at the first regularly scheduled meeting of the year. Section 2, the responsibilities of the ZBA Chairperson include spokesperson for the ZBA, development of meeting agenda, conduct of efficient, orderly, impartial, and respectful meetings, assignment of a pro tem chairperson at any time, utilization of the alternate member to establish a quorum. Article 4, conduct of meetings, workshops, and executive sessions. Section 1, all meetings of the ZBA will be announced through public notice per Maine statute. Section 2, all meetings will be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order newly revised in all cases to which they are applicable and which they are not in conflict by these bylaws. The chairperson may waive any rule of order upon showing good cause. Section 3, a quorum shall consist of 3 ZBA members. All actions shall be determined by a vote. A majority of the quorum present is needed to pass any motion. When a vote on a motion ends in a tie vote, the motion fails. The determination of a quorum for any vote shall not include any member who cannot participate in that vote due to a conflict of interest. Section 4, all comments, questions from applicants, applicant representatives, or the public shall be made through the chairperson. The chairperson shall rule any applicant representative, member of the public, or ZBA member out of order for making inappropriate statements or comments. The chairperson reserves the right to limit the time allotted for testimony or public comment. Section 5, all meetings, special meetings, and workshops of the ZBA are open to the public and governed by the Freedom of Information Act, with the exception of executive sessions. At regular and special ZBA meetings, the public is allowed to comment on specific agenda items. During workshops, the public may be allowed to comment provided there is a majority vote in the affirmative by the ZBA members present. Article 5, amendments to bylaws. The ZBA shall have the authority to amend these bylaws by vote at a regular or special meeting, provided that all members receive written notice of potential bylaw amendments at least 7 days prior to the date of the meeting. This was effective April 28, 2014.
Great. Any concerns with the bylaws?
I don't have a concern, and I just don't understand what, according to Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, means. Or
I'm
what
with you.
is it?
That's the title of a book.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I know, I feel badly, because I am not by any means highly knowledgeable of Robert's rules. I've tried to go in, I have studied some of them to try to at least be able to.
I've got a little history on that.
Yeah.
While I was town clerk, they were using the book, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And they discovered that they had this revised book, which is a shortened version. So it makes it a lot easier to find questions and get your answers. But they have copies of it down at the town office.
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, is this book, what does it say? Does it say rules should be this?
It's not as specific as that, unfortunately. Basically, it's like you have to have a motion, you have to have a second, and you have to have the vote.
It's
in order to
basically
pass
just telling
something.
you how to run a meeting.
Right, how to
Yeah,
run,
yeah,
how to
essentially,
properly run.
Essentially, yeah.
I know I've got some here I could share with you sometime about, under how to chair a meeting and the basic Roberts rules. You can go online and find some of that stuff.
And the
too,
reason
and-
it's mentioned with a title is because there are other ways and books on holding meetings.
Yeah,
Robert's Rules is probably the best known and most widely used.
Mm.
But it's a gargantuan document.
Thank you.
yeah. Right. So I share with you, Len, the same thing. I just feel badly, like I said, that I know, trying to run these meetings, that I don't, and I am, by all means, any of you who know them well, and you find that we're out of procedure, call,
I think like he did tonight with the
exactly,
motion,
that's
yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
that's perfect, and we
We
did go a
try and
little-
keep it straight.
Yeah, exactly, so, I mean, I at least feel good that I think we're following the major things that we need to.
The only thing that I saw in here that under Article 3, Section 1, this election will take place at the first regularly scheduled meeting of the year. Do we need something more definitive than that? Because when is the first regular schedule?
I think we said it's the
Fiscal
first
year?
meeting in July.
It's,
July being the
It's
start of
u-
the new fiscal year, the new town year. the
which
way
is
we're looking at it.
July 1st, but the first regularly scheduled meeting of the year would probably start July 1st, and
That's what
maybe that should be in there.
Or we had like a definition of what is the start of the year. I mean,
Yeah.
like it normally would be they'd say calendar year would mean January, so.
Right. And this just says of the year, it doesn't say fiscal year or anything.
Hmm.
Can we make that change?
Is that an ordinance or is that laws?
No, it's just our bylaws.
Oh, bylaws.
It's our bylaws. I mean, it would just be very clear then.
No, I agree, because we were
It's
confused.
just
We
the
all were
words.
confused as
Yeah.
to when it was
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be. So,
Because appointments generally are done the first selectmen's meeting after town meeting, which is, this the first Tuesday of June.
so speaking from your perspectives of working with the town at time, should it say of the fiscal year?
Yeah, the fiscal year, I'd use fiscal year.
Does that make sense for you, Mary?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I guess if the fiscal year became the calendar year, like it is in some towns, that might muddy the waters. But
So.
they could move town meeting too, so
Yeah,
if they moved it back to March, then we'd Have to
We
scrub,
would-
I'd keep it fiscal
I'd say
year.
fiscal, because I think that would flow for
Yeah.
either one. So Mary, do you have this? I mean, I don't mind making the change.
No, that'll take me a minute.
So next time we have a meeting, we can just sign off on that,
Mm-hmm.
like they did? Okay, great. Good. Thank you. Let's see. 5, Sue Look had brought to Mary's and my attention, I think both of us and Scott probably, about the possibility of changing the day that we meet from Monday to Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month, for various reasons. I was not opposed to it, and my plan was to bring it to the group tonight to see if there was any opposition. Mary found out in the meantime, in the latest version of the ordinances, that it says in there, in Article 6, Board of Appeals, item C1, page 25 out of 136, that it's, that we have to meet on the last Monday of the month. So it's actually in there.
Thank you.
So, what, I guess, what's the procedure?
Well, that would have to go through town meeting. because
Right.
It's the ordinance.
Right,
So, so you really, there couldn't be any, we can make note of the change, and then when we discuss the changes for the ordinance, that would be one that we would ask.
so do I bring this back to Sue's attention and say, this is the situation?
I
And
copied her on, she was on that email.
Right, do we have to make a formal request for them?
No, shouldn't be, not for that.
I think verbal would be enough.
Yeah, okay. So you think we're covered?
Mhm.
We've told her? But what I can tell her, though, does anyone have any opposition to that, if we could change it?
I do not.
I don't.
Well, I mean, it could, you never know what the next board is gonna be.
I know.
It could be something different, so.
At this moment in time, so we would probably likely, if it were gonna
Mhm.
come up for a change at that point in time, depending on who's on the board, we should vote at that point.
Well, the only other thing I can think of is not to have it in there at all.
Well, the previous one was generic, and it just said once a month that we had to meet.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised, that was a good catch on Mary's part, that they changed it to be that specific.
Mm.
Not sure
I
why.
mean, why couldn't we change it back to being non-specific?
You could, I mean, we'd have to see why originally it was changed to Monday to begin
Part
with.
of what was changed here was that it said, it simply said shall meet monthly, essentially is what it said.
Okay.
As opposed to as needed. So it
Well, that's
was-
pretty
it
much
was
what we
committing-
do.
It was committing you to being every single month.
Well, in the
Yeah.
past,
Yeah.
we would go months and months and months without meeting, so
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see why that,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Was it
does,
worded for the planning board?
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
what-
as needed? I can't remember.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
As needed.
that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why this one changes as needed was put in. I didn't realize that there was changing it from last Monday.
Well, we've
I
got
thought that was
plenty of,
in there already, but
we got plenty of time before this can be changed. I think what the first thing, as we've done, is pointed out to Sue that we can't because it's in the ordinance, and when the time comes, we can bring it up at the meeting before there's gonna be a change. So,
Which really should be probably January.
yeah, probably that's when, yep, exactly.
'Cause
Okay.
that's when town meeting warrant articles
yeah,
start
that's when
rolling.
we'll put it all together.
Yeah.
Time for that. I'll just make a note, January, consider. 6, code enforcement officer communications.
We got nothing.
What?
So far, we have
Right.
nothing, we haven't had any even inquiries yet, so far.
So that means we have nothing for next month.
Yep.
Because,
Yeah,
It's
we're-
already, but
Yeah,
beyond.
we're at a deadline, so
Yay,
got a
Thank
mini
you.
vacation
thank you.
at the end of summer.
Yay, thank you very much. And then we need a motion for adjournment.
Make a
I so
motion that we
move.
adjourn.
I second.
Seconded. Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. Welcome to the September 24th Budget Finance Committee meeting. First order of business is to elect a chair and vice chair for the upcoming budget cycle. Are there any nominations?
Nominate Bob Goslin as chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
I'll move nomination cease.
Nominations ceased. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Thank you, guys. This time we will elect a vice chair for our upcoming budget cycle. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Kevin Oliver as vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations?
Surprise.
I'll move nomination cease.
Nominations cease. All those in favor of Kevin, vice chair? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next order of business is to discuss and select a time and day that we will be meeting throughout this budget cycle. In the past, we have met on Tuesday evenings at 6:30. Are there any conflicts with that time frame if we continued in that format?
I don't see any.
I mean, I can make it work. Tuesdays are days that I'm more often out of town,
Okay.
but we don't meet, enough where I couldn't make that work.
Okay.
So if it works good for everybody else, I can do it.
Karen, that work for you? 6:30 on Tuesday evenings? Okay, very good. Then let it be written.
Tuesday, 6:30.
Tuesdays at 6:30, and the budget schedule will be coming out once that's developed. Next order of business is to discuss our members' desire to participate remotely. I have seen several communications on this, and I guess I will ask for Sue to disseminate the information that's been going out in terms of remote participation.
Okay, I haven't been party to all the communications, I've only seen a few, so I'm not sure I'm the
Well,
proper person to do that.
If I may, I
Please.
assume you go by Robert's rules.
Yes.
Robert's rules state if it's in your bylaws, you can do it. If it's not in your bylaws, you can't do it.
Okay, and you do have a copy of our bylaws?
Yes.
And does it indicate whether or not we can do that remotely?
No, it's silent.
What it says under membership, quorum, and voting, section 6, on letter E, this, or Kevin will holler at me, is that the Budget Finance Committee shall officially act only in the presence of a quorum of 4 voting members. Official motions will pass only on a majority vote of all voting members of the Budget Finance Committee unless the Budget and Finance Committee unanimously votes to adopt other rules at their first meeting of the year after the annual meeting and agrees to utilize the revised voting procedure for the full year.
The select board in their September 17th meeting, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to watch that, changed their bylaws to take out, they allowed remote participation, they took it out at their September 17th meeting. Without getting into personal opinions on the issue, the chair's reasoning was the state hasn't done anything with this, there's no state statute, therefore let's wait for the state. I think that's a fair summary. But what I'd like to, with the chair's permission, is to tell you exactly where that stands. In the MMA Legislative Bulletin of May 2019, the bill that we're looking at is called LD 1183. To be clear, it was tabled on June 12th, okay? It did not come out of committee for vote. Without getting into all the background, which you can just go online and read, the bill is coming with the support of what they call Maine's Right to Know Advisory Committee, okay, and this is through Public Affairs, FOIA, the Attorney General's office. So this came out, and you can find more background information in their 2019 annual report. But if you go on, I'm sorry I didn't highlight this. There were 4 or 5 conditions that are contained in the legislation. One of the things I thought was interesting is the sponsor of the bill acknowledged the hypocrisy of that view given that the ability of legislators, and we're talking state level, to cast votes at the committee level from remote locations or under certain circumstances by proxy even after missing hearings and work sessions, they rejected the outright restriction and moved on to LD 83. 5 basic statewide parameters will apply to technological participation in public meetings by members of local public bodies. First, as noted above, the constituents of the body will be required to authorize at the local level. Now, this is interesting, likely either through a town meeting or referendum, the body to adopt its remote participation policy. Second, no policies may allow remote participation in executive session, and votes may not be cast remotely on issues just discussed in executive session. Third, a quorum is required for public bodies with 3 or fewer members. At least one member of the body must be physically present at the location identified in the meeting notice. Fourth, all members must be physically present during at least one public proceeding per year. And fifth and finally, municipalities and counties are authorized to impose stricter limits or total prohibitions on remote participation. And it goes on and on about, some of the philosophy behind that. I had conversations with the FOIA folks, and as I said, this is directly from their recommendation, and they weren't optimistic anything would happen in the upcoming session, because there's a lot of stuff going on, but maybe the year after. And they told me it's a question of if not when. So that's what's really happening on the state level. As we have just discussed, this body, and as the select board kind of punted it back to us, they've changed their bylaws, but indicated that it was up to us to deal with ours. So that's where we stand.
All right. One thing about remote participation is that if you were a member that qualified the quorum and you became disconnected from our meeting, and going forward, our meeting would have to be.
I think that a physical quorum must be present.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Actually, Sam Gifford offered that at the select board meeting. Good practice, and if you go, there are other towns in Maine and 36 states that already do this. Good practice says you should have a physical quorum present, and only then could you enter.
Extend that.
Exactly. That way you don't run into that particular problem.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Do we know why the select board changed the way they had it? Was it not working?
They removed verbiage from their bylaws.
I think they really hadn't thought about it in any real detailed way. That's brought it to the fore. They did some research and reached the decision that they did for the reasons that they outlined, present uncertainty, waiting for some state guidance. So I don't think it had been something they had thought about. And I don't know if we've ever used it. Have we ever used it?
Just once when Teresa was
once.
sick.
Yeah, and I think what Ralph was presenting were the recommendations that I actually gave to him. So you saw that email where I went through some of the legislative history. And, again, you can say discretion is the better part of valor, I guess. 2 select board members came up with totally different reasons. One is that if someone chooses not to be at a meeting, that's their personal choice and we shouldn't accommodate it. The other reason is that by doing that, you're denying an opportunity to someone else in town to take up the particular position. I'd like to point out this committee by ordinance was reduced from 11 to 7 because we couldn't fill 11 positions. And
Partly because we didn't have the purview of the school anymore.
yeah. And the other thing is, we had 2 members be elected by 30 votes of a write-in campaign. We continue to struggle to fill appointed committees. I don't think public participation denial is a very valid reason here in Raymond. The other reason is that one select board member felt that I was elected to sit here, okay? Again, that select board member, and most of us run unopposed. So I'm not sure, those are personal issues, not town policy issues. I respect personal opinions, I happen to disagree with them. I think the reality of today is, particularly if you want to get younger people involved, that you're going to have to find some compromise in this particular area. As I said today, state legislative committees, I'm on a statewide task force through the governor's office. We do it remotely all the time. So, you know, it's a question of, I think, good practice and, quite honestly, the ability of the public to participate. As you know, our first meetings are really just sitting here and listening. There's really there's no vote, no decisions, no anything taken. We basically have one meeting where we get to say the workshop, which also doesn't allow public participation, that we get to vote in. So I don't find that as a valid reason. And that's pretty much our work, listening in one meeting that the public isn't even allowed input into. So I don't think we're denying the public anything. Again, I think part of it was the assumption by the select board members regarding the request that it would include the entire budget session. The only request that was made to our chair is what is our policy. So I think there's a lot of assumptions about the member requests and their plans without ever talking to the member, which I find, again, disingenuous, quite honestly. So, you know, that's kind of my full discussion of it. And again, our own FOIA people and MMA support LD 1183, which is now back to a committee, and hopefully to move forward legislation with those conditions. I would recommend we do those conditions with the addition of physical quorum. I'm done.
Any other discussion?
Crystal?
Is this being brought up just to have it done one time remotely or all the time remotely?
Remote participation has, or any absence has to be requested of the chair each and every meeting.
Okay.
But
So
it
it
would
would
be-
necessarily be, so it could be all the time.
Will it be
It
all
could-
the time
it could
through
be.
the full budget cycle to our vote?
I haven't, based on what's been going on, I haven't made that decision. Honestly, that was not my intent. My intent was, I'm the member, okay? My intent was, yeah. Well, if you listen to the select board meeting, you would have no doubt about that. But my intention was to be here for all voting meetings. But given the animosity that I continue to experience from the select board, I'm not sure if even this is worth my time to be, and that's just being brutally honest.
Yeah, Joe.
I still go back, your bylaws don't speak on it. That piece of legislation's been carried over, which means it will probably die in committee next session. And I do know something about the legislative process, so, you know, you don't have it in your bylaws, it's not specifically allowed. Roberts is clear on it. If it's not in your bylaws, and you say you run by Robert's rules,
No, we don't.
we don't.
Yes, we do.
Show me where it is in our bylaws. The select board does.
Well, I think most town committees run
I'm
by
just
Robert's
saying,
rules.
if we're going to be
I'm
specific,
assuming
we're
that
going
we
to be
run.
specific. It is not, I think it's a gentleman's agreement, and we have, but it's not in the ordinance. That's all I'm saying.
Well, for me, remote participation, and, I mean, I can tell you the boards I serve on, we don't allow it, because it's clunky, there's hesitation, it's hard to have a good conversation, you know,
Are these profit or nonprofit boards?
they're state boards.
Okay. Because I use it on state committees and 3 nonprofit boards, and quite honestly, with the right technology, if you're not doing like Skype, there's no problems.
Well, these are governing boards of the state, and we do not, and the state does not allow it on those boards. So,
Dana?
We had a selectman several years ago that went to Colorado for the winter. And the selectmen have a rule that says if you miss more than 3 consecutive meetings, you're done. And he spent all winter in Colorado, in Denver, or wherever he was. But so if we're going to make exceptions for certain people, then we should do it for others. And there was no Skype. He just didn't show up. He left us there, and I got fed up with it. And I think Mr. Bruno remembers that, because I got up when we were only 3 selectmen. I got up and left, and we no longer had a quorum. And that was basically I did that because of he never showed up. And it's like, did they change their rules to let that individual winter in Colorado for the winter? 3 meetings. We had more than 3 meetings.
but someone would have to challenge it. That's how it's set up.
Yeah, but if
No
we're
one
allowed,
challenged it, so.
if we're allowed to,
Well, see,
well,
that's the approach, I'm sorry. Sorry,
if
Mr. Chair.
if we're gonna allow that to happen in the past, I think with the technology that we have with Skype, I think that we should change our bylaws. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Kevin?
So for what it's worth, I have very limited legislative experience, but I can see the conflict, somebody wanting to join a committee like this, knowing that they're going to miss significant time. But I mean, in this case, we have a member that's already on the committee, and I don't know any of the personal details of how this has arrived, but things have changed mid-term. I think that, you know, your input is valuable. Do we have room to allow the opportunity to maybe take like a vote or change our bylaws so that we can, as a committee, say, okay, you know, this member is already part of the committee for the rest of her term or his term, you know, we will allow this or we won't allow it. How does that
I would
fall
think
under state law?
state law is silent on all of this, so we can cite others' practices, and we can list the 36 states that do allow it. We can list all the towns in Maine that do allow it, if we so choose. So I think, but to make a bylaw change on an exception, I wouldn't support that, because that's an unintended consequence waiting to come back and bite you in the proverbial behind. Because somebody could say, oh, I never intended to do this, but they did all along. You could have lots of different things. I guess, again, what if we follow the public advisory recommendation and the Maine Municipal Association recommendation on when, if ever, the state of Maine will take this up, because Joe is absolutely right. Forms of this have been kicking around since 2015, okay? And it's never made it to the floor, okay? However, it's been raised for 2 years in the Public Affairs Annual Report. And I think visibility of these kinds of issues may change. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think they will change here in the state of Maine. So, and even the Public Affairs Office said, probably not this session, but next session. Adding the issue of a physical quorum present, which means no matter what happens to anybody that tries to participate remotely, if this is a problem, it doesn't make any difference, because you can continue your business. And I'd like to remind the Budget Finance Committee, we only really have, other than, sorry, we do approve minutes, but we only have one voting session for the entire budget cycle, which is once the select board gives us something, we can vote to recommend and not recommend. That's the only thing. The other issue that, it's not part in here, but they'll probably specifically preclude any judicial or quasi-judicial meetings. You can look for definitions on that. And again, you can see, no executive session. You can't vote on what you did, no, the public didn't hear via that. Because again, they're saying it has to be public. What's going on has to be public. So, okay, I'll stop. I promise I'll stop.
Any other comments? And that being said, you came to this committee with the commitment to participate. You knew the time frame of our meetings and when the budget cycle transpires. Personally, I think you're making a choice to not participate and choose to do something else on your own.
Well, again, Bob, I disagree because this is, I'm asking to participate.
I understand that.
You know, at the end of the day, this committee can vote to change its bylaws or not. And again, I will, and let me back you up again. Forget about me for a second, you know? I might change my mind and be here all winter. You don't know. Nobody knows what my personal plans are. Forget all of that. As a policy, is it a good policy? And, you know, that's what I wish we would focus on. Get off of me. I wish the select board would get off of me too. Is it good public policy or is it not? Your personal choice, my personal choice is really none of your business. Is it a good public policy or not? I was disappointed in the select board because my recommendation is that they establish a policy for the town of Raymond. What they chose to do is just change their own bylaws and punt it back to us. I think that's bad public policy. I felt they should have come, and again, if it was, we're not going to do this, and they voted on it, that's the end of the discussion. I wish they'd taken the responsibility for the entire town. But now what they've done is they've left it to every single bloody committee and elected official to do on their own. I think that's bad public policy. So again, you know, I think that if there are no more comments, we should just, if there's a motion or not, we go from there.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move we allow remote participation with the 5 conditions. Do you want me to repeat those? And add a 6th condition, that a quorum must be physically present.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, any other discussion?
Yeah, I would highly recommend we vote against this. It's not easy to do. It doesn't allow for interaction, which you have when you're sitting around the table. And I'm sorry, I've seen it done. It's not easy. It's dysfunctional, actually. And you know what? I got written in to serve on this committee, and I made the commitment I'm going to be here. And you know, I may not be here at times for whatever reason, but if I'm around, I'm going to be here. And I also want to reiterate, it's not in our bylaws. So if you want to do it, make a motion to change the bylaws. I don't know, what is the bylaw change in Maine? You have to go to a public hearing, or?
Bylaw change means, or in this case, it isn't a bylaw, it's an ordinance, so it means town meeting.
Right. So.
And what we're doing is voting for procedures for the Budget Finance Committee itself, which we are required to do at the first meeting of the year.
And if you agree with me that you follow Robert's rules, it's pretty clear.
Any other discussion?
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, it's tough to have to make a decision on the spot like this. I wish we could do, you know, have a little bit more time, I guess, to think about the consequences of allowing it versus not. Right now, I'm kind of open to the idea, but also negligent to some of the doors that might open.
Hey, we did just fine with 3 selectmen.
Crystal?
I wish that I could support you, because I do really
But
like
again, you have to
but
vote your
I
conscience.
do
You
agree
have
with
to vote.
Joe,
You have to vote the way you need to
and I
vote.
do feel like maybe I'm younger.
More progressive.
And you would think that I would want to do stuff online or remotely, but I really do feel the importance of face-to-face contact, and I really do feel like you do miss stuff doing stuff online. I just really do, and I think that this is really important thing that we do for our town. I think it's important to have you present. I really do.
Can I ask a question, please? If we were to look to have an ordinance change, that wouldn't be in effect for this coming budget cycle. It could be approved in the next ordinance, town meeting,
That's correct.
so that would be a long road.
Again, in terms of process, forget the issue. I think what the select board made clear is they don't want to deal with it. They want us to deal with it. And to me, that's not, we're not changing the charter or the quorum or the voting procedures, though. We're just talking about remote attendance. So I think in the manner in which it was punted back to us, I think it's our decision, not an ordinance change. That said, again, you know, we make our cases just like we do everything, Crystal. And you make the vote that you feel you need to make. I mean, believe me, I accept when there's fair public participation, outcomes of votes. Again, in this particular issue, it's very symptomatic of how we do business in this town. You're being asked to do something with no background information, nothing on a piece of paper, and that seems to be kind of how we do things here. I agree with you, Kevin. A lot of this information was shared with the chair of the select board and also our chair, but somehow it didn't find its way to you. That's all I can say.
And I don't really want to interject myself into this, but I would take a little bit of exception with the without documentation idea. We would have distributed anything that was provided, but this isn't really our initiative. So, you know, if we had something, we would have, you know, sent it out, correct, Sue?
Yes.
So, I mean, I didn't have anything from Board of
No,
Selectmen
you know,
or
and
from you, Sheila. So
I
mean,
beg to
let's-
differ with
let's stay
you.
on this
One
subject,
more
please.
thing. I requested information from the town clerk, which is a typical process. What she felt she needed to do is refer to the chair of the select board. So we can't have it all ways done, that's all I'm saying.
I was just taking exception to the idea that we do things without any kind of background information. I mean, in advance.
I said on
To
this
to Kevin's-
particular, yes.
to Kevin's point.
And I apologize for
We
that.
try as a town to get everything in as many formats as we can out there for people
Yeah.
to see. And I do get that this is, you know, has some, you know, sensitivities, political and otherwise, and policy-wise. And so, I mean, it truly is something you all need to, as elected officials, debate and decide. And so, you know, if I had something to put in the packet, I would have.
Yeah, and Don, I apologize to every member of town staff for that remark. It was not intended at the
I
excellent
understand.
preparation that you
I don't want
guys
to
do.
get, I understand.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion?
Nope, I don't think so.
Dana?
We currently have a selectman that doesn't make every meeting. So if Sheila decides to go to wherever, does that mean if she misses 3 meetings, she's gonna have to resign?
Not unless she's challenged,
Not unless I'm what?
not unless someone challenges and missing 3 meetings.
Well, and there's a process for excused absences also.
I'd like to move the question. Those interested in allowing or pursuing remote participation? I have 3. All those against? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approving the minutes from our meeting on April 30th, our voting meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on the minutes?
Thank you, Sue.
corrections, omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I would abstain.
Any opposed? All in favor?
2 abstentions.
And 2 exceptions. Now we're gonna review the special town meeting warrant article, and I'm gonna allow you guys to do your presentation, or is there any discussion that needs to be made?
Well, it's up to you. I submitted a brief memo that came from the last Board of Selectmen e-packet. The Reader's Digest version on this is that, like so many municipal projects, I like the term all delivered municipal speed. This one's taken about 2 years and some months to get to you. We've been studying it as a group of communities, that's Standish and Wyndham, Gorham and Raymond. And so we're working as a group and trying to stay in sync with one another. You know, we've been more or less successful with that. At times we're ahead, at times they're ahead. Right now, we're probably a little bit behind those other towns, which have, I think, besides Standish, all secured their approvals. So we're looking as a group of municipalities to solicit bids together with our provider, which in this case is Real Term Energy. About 2.5 years ago, we got together and said, let's interview people in this business, look at this, see if it makes sense. We selected Real Term. I think they're working with about 35 or so other communities in Maine. About 40 communities altogether have already completed this project. And of course, the reason that we do it is for energy efficiency and associated cost savings. And, you know, maintenance ease, the fixtures last a long time. You know, smaller, I guess, reasons, but significant reasons are things like, you know, there's, when you do have to dispose of them, they don't have the toxic, you know, materials in them. And so anyway, LEDs are really kind of sweeping the country as the current form of municipal infrastructure lighting, safety lighting. And so we opted in our case for a thing called smart controls, which enables us to dial them up and down, so we can actually save even more energy late at night if we want to, you know, turn them back. If there's a need to turn them up, if say there's an accident or a critical incident on a roadway that's illuminated, we can turn them up to additional intensity. The system and the technology we have now is on average about 27 years old. The fixtures are about 27 years old. We're proposing 110 of them for conversion. The ones that are along 302 are 69 ornamental lights and then some miscellaneous box lights throughout the town. Those are probably, we're not going to do right now. We're looking and waiting for a better deal and a better retrofit technology. Because they're designed, they're expensive to retrofit, so they're not on the table. But we think from a cost standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to go LED. Overall, 40 communities have either done it or are doing it now right in Maine, and more communities joining. Casco just joined in with the Cape Elizabeth Yarmouth group, I guess. So there's pretty much Cumberland County is either complete or underway on it. And I think there's a little comparison of costs over a 15-year period, and it's a significantly less expense. And you know, one question might be the maintenance issue. Right now, we're talking about working with Real Term on an annual contract, which I think is about $2,600. The reason it's so low is that these things are, you know, super reliable, and you don't go up and replace a bulb. You know, I guess you just put a new fixture head on. It was so going to put, or we're going to buy spares and have them available, but we won't do it. They'll do it. At some point in the future, there may be a movement of towns to work together and have a, you know, regional lighting department. Some towns already have that, like Scarborough. I don't believe Wyndham has that function. Gorham doesn't have that function, but some of the larger towns do. So there may be an ability to work together with another municipality in the future. But right now it'll be Real Term, and they've secured contracts with a number of different communities. So I think that's going to be a reliable solution. So more light, less money, more reliability, no CMP.
So what happens to the, you know, and again, this is just anecdotal, watching the Portland Press Herald, the big arguments over, okay, so you did this, now all the underground
Right, that's a great question. All of our lights that we're proposing are fed from above, so that's not an issue for these lights. Now it is an issue with our street light
the
system.
ornamental stuff.
The ornamentals are already town owned, and they're fed from below, and they are problematic. You you know, we had a rodent issue this past winter, you know, wire got shorted out, and so we made the decision, which a lot of people criticize, because that's how it is, you know, some people are gonna agree with the decision made, some are not going to, but the decision that I made was to save the money trying to do winter excavations and locate the broken wire and fix it, to not do that in the winter, which kept the lights out a significant part of the winter. So that is a problem, and that's yet to be resolved and decided. I think Portland's fighting that right now.
Well, I think Portland, CMP backed off and said they
Okay.
would take care of that particular problem. I don't think we've heard the last of it, though.
But it doesn't affect these lights at all. It would be in effect with the ornamentals should we convert them, but we're already there. We already own the system.
So the 110 are just scattered around town?
Yes.
Or how many do we actually have out there?
Well, 110 streetlights that are not ornamentals or box
The
lights.
Cobra heads.
Cobra heads, yeah.
Okay. I know the library looked into converting our fixtures, and we just couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Well, that's what we found out with the ornamentals and the yard lights and so forth.
Joe?
So Don, what's the payback on that? It's $70,000.
About
the current electricity bill, if I remember, is around 21,000.
Yeah,
a year.
22.5. It's about 4.8
Okay.
years, I think.
So, and where do you expect the electric charge to go to? To zero?
Oh, no. The electric charge doesn't go to zero.
The largest
Couple
part,
$1,000 a year, maybe?
the largest part of what we pay every month for streetlights is rental
Right.
of those streetlights.
Okay.
I believe the electricity itself is gonna go to, like, I'm gonna say around 5 to like 1. But the biggest part of what we're losing is the $11,000 a year that we pay for
Two CMP.
CMP,
For the
just
poles and the lights.
for the poles and the lights, not for delivery, not for
Right.
supply.
Well, the poles are already there.
Yeah,
Right.
but
These are
they also
existing
go
poles.
down.
Yeah, but you still
It's all
lease them. from
on
what I
page
remember.
page 48 of the
Yeah.
is a comparison.
I don't think I ever got that.
You want that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get anything directly, so we're kind of operating in the dark over here.
What's that? You didn't get
We
that?
didn't get anything directly for the Budget Finance Committee.
I sent
We
it
sent
to
it to Bob
Bob,
Goslin twice.
sent this presentation.
So you didn't send it out to the group.
I did not see the,
We sent it to you twice. Here's the other, maybe we should, maybe we need to talk about our protocols. We
I have
used,
I have an entire copy here if you
well,
want
I've
to
got one
send
too.
that
There's the
out.
front page.
No.
I mean, I just need to see it.
I apologize.
No,
I-
and Don, it's fine, and, you know, I've got to say personally,
Here's another entire copy, I guess.
when Don Willard says in the long term it's gonna save us money, I believe that. You know, I mean, because
So
I
this
know
is
he
page
keeps
one,
a
it
real
goes to
sharp
that page
pencil.
2, and there's the rest of it. I'll say that it's sent out to you all. I do apologize.
I didn't see it.
Bob, can I?
This is
I
current.
didn't see it.
Separate from this?
No, those are separate. There's 2 complete copies. One's Kathy's, one's mine.
Okay, and it has that page.
And it was in the e-packet, last month's e-packet.
So we're going from.
So it's on the,
Select board.
it
phone
was
So it's on the web.
It is on the web.
Dana?
All right. I got that. What was the CMP proposal?
The CMP proposal is outlined on page
Okay.
49 too.
Now, who's going to supply the power for
Still gonna
those
be-
new lights?
CMP's gonna supply the power.
Alright.
and
Now, there's been a lot of bad news about CMP and other utility companies, but it's easy to pick on CMP and say they're overcharging us, but I've got a light like that at my camp, and I had it converted for absolutely nothing. It was converted, I pay $110 a year for that light, 12 months. And I don't have to maintain it. The maintenance part is what gets me, and another thing that gets me is, why is this such an emergency that we need to do a special town meeting? I think we're taking advantage of the special town meeting, because special town meetings are supposed, in my opinion, should be for emergencies.
Yeah, we rarely use it, as you
And
know.
I'm sorry, Don, I don't want to,
Yeah.
let me finish, and then you can.
Yeah, okay.
But, you know, we've had special town meetings on stuff and they're always scheduled when, either in the middle of the summer. Why do we have this meeting on October 8 when we have a November election? Why can't we let the people of Raymond actually fill in the blank and check if we're gonna use that money that, in my opinion, was designated to lower the mill rate, why should we be voting that? What's the emergency? October 8? And we got a November election.
Let me know when you're ready for my
I'm
report.
almost set. Go ahead.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, the principal reason is that we're trying to stay in sync with the other communities for collective purchasing, buying authority and working together. This is a de minimis proposal in the life of the town, and I think it makes eminent financial sense. The selectmen, I think, agree with that. It's been 2 years in the making. It's nothing new. If people were alarmed about it, alerted by it, they could have come. We've talked about it for 2 years, off and on. I just don't think it rises to the level of significance where it's anything for anybody in the public to worry about as a special town meeting item. And I do get your point. I mean, Raymond in particular is very adverse for some reason.
Put it in the budget.
For special town meetings. But imagine if you're trying to run a corporation, a business, and you made decisions once a year, significant decisions once a year with your board of directors. That would hamstring your business. This, to me, just doesn't rise to the level of where it's anything to be too concerned about, and to have a town-wide vote on $78,000 to do something that is environmentally the right thing to do, energy-wise the right thing to do, financially the right thing to do, and the elected body thinks it's the right thing to do. If you're exercised enough about it, come to the special town meeting.
Then do it in November.
And I have another question. I know I asked about this exact thing during the budget hearings, and you said basically it was not ready for prime time. Are we going to lose our joint purchasing over 30 days?
Probably not. I mean, if we
Okay.
push out to November, probably not. But I mean, frankly, like for the reason I just outlined, I don't think it's. I mean, we're trying to stay with the program. We're trying to, Wyndham's approved theirs through their council because they have a council form. Standish, I believe, is going to a vote in November. I believe is what they're doing. They'll be the last town in the pool, the last one to be completed. We were ahead of the other towns at one point in terms of the process. They've had some turmoil and transition in their, in their town managers, and so they've had some difficulty keeping pace, but they have now caught up and gone by us. I'm just trying to keep us on track so that we are with these other towns and can participate during this opportunity. We cannot wait till next town meeting and be with this group. We probably could have gone to November, but I don't think it is of significance that it warrants a town, like a ballot question vote. That's just my opinion.
Joe?
Don, I'm not concerned about the process. I think it's fine. What I'm concerned that if you get a vote on the 8th, when does the process begin to convert?
Oh, we're going to sign the agreement the next day or the day after, get it back to them, and then as soon as we'll start right away.
The answer was on the last page.
Oh, it's on the last page. I wish you had the proposal. I really do.
I wish we did too.
Yeah, I'm sorry
The
about
very
that.
last page, that's an email. 'Cause
Oh,
it said-
okay, that has the.
We did get the email.
Yeah, well, that has the selectmen's questions. The selectmen had some questions.
No, we didn't get that email.
I was going on vacation the next day, so Kathy posed these questions
To the vendor,
to the vendor.
and then they answered them, and then I sent them out again.
So just give me the answer as to when they will start.
I think it's the third question, isn't it?
Is it the third question?
CMP's got to take their lights down, Joe.
It's going to have to be coordinated.
Yeah. They're not going to do it.
Okay, typically it takes 8 to 10 weeks to get all of the hardware, fixtures, fuses, and delivered to the site in order to start installation. So depending on when in October the special town meeting is, I would expect that all hardware to be on site no later than the end of December, so that the crews can start installing in early January based on your count of 100 and.
But the answer is they're going to start ordering the materials and getting the project rolling the day we sign the agreement, which is the day after the town meeting.
And the total installation period is 5 days.
For all 110 lights.
Yep, they take them out, they put it in.
CMP
So there's
takes
no-
them out.
You don't,
Does CMP?
CMP takes
no,
the
no,
lights
Real
CMP does
term.
not take them out.
Real term takes them out so that you're getting they're taking the old one out, they're putting the new one in, you're not going any period of time without the streetlights.
Now, CMP's gonna let somebody else
Yeah,
take their
CMP,
equipment
you're
out?
absolutely right. CMP did everything possible as a major utility and a monopoly to stop this kind of action, because streetlights are a cash cow for CMP and other utilities. But through time and negotiations, and I think the tide of inevitability finally, I think, dawned on them. So, but you're right, in the very beginning, they put these, criteria on anybody who would touch their streetlights as if they were something, highly magical or something that only they
Except
could deal
when
with.
they fall over.
And so, but
then it's
so
all
that's
one thing.
so that those days are by. We're by that. The whole idea that the monopoly says you can't work on the lights. Our vendor will take the lights down and take care of them.
Kevin?
So first of all, I think that this is the way of the future. I mean, LEDs make sense. I agree with the process and moving in that direction. The one question that I had was, I thought I heard a comment a few minutes ago about we cannot wait until the next meeting or something like
The annual
that.
town meeting.
Next, to put it in the annual budget.
To be with this group of
which would
towns,
be
we'd have to
here.
join a different group.
Okay, all right, I just didn't
We
understand
could
that.
wait, but we've been with this group of towns for 2.5 years. I'd have to join a different.
But putting it on the November ballot for this.
Kevin, what I'm getting to is, I was trying to say is, what I think we should do is, wait, have it in November, and it's just one of those things that we should put it in the 2020 budget. That's where it should be. We shouldn't be using surplus for something that's not an emergency.
Any other discussion?
Surplus is to be used for major.
Don, if I could ask you, Kathy, what is the undesignated fund balance?
Yes, so the undesignated fund balance, the selectmen, it's $478.95. They've used $200,000 to reduce the commitment this year, $78,000 for the LED project, supposing this passes, which leaves an excess of $200,095. So we're
And that's still excess.
excess.
That's
excess.
over the $2
Over the
million.
goal. Over the goal.
Yes.
Why can't you use the selectmen's fund, the
They,
75,000?
they could, but they.
Why don't we
elect to
do that?
this.
It's not an emergency.
It's not an emergency, right?
Right.
Yep.
I'd like to read the article.
That 75,000 for the selectmen is for emergency use.
Yep.
Or unanticipated.
Unanticipated.
You could make an argument, but he's probably right, it's be a harder argument, or an argument.
Hey, I don't want to continue to slow things down, but I do want to ask, the $2,600 you mentioned for the maintenance, is that an annual cost?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's gonna go up every year.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the Budget and Finance Committee endorse the LED article.
Have a motion? I would appreciate a second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Is there any other? All those in favor of the article, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1.
So once again, my apologies, let's talk about the protocol, can we do that for just distribution?
Sure.
So I did ask Kathy to send it out again to make sure you had it, but I don't know did you send a direction to distribute it? You didn't, right?
I sent it to Bob the first, no, I didn't say to distribute it.
Okay,
I did not.
so that's maybe where the confusion is, but what we've done in the past with, I think, with Marshall and with Rolf, was that we would go through the chair and send, everything we sent to the chair then would be broadcast out. We would deal with one person.
Correct.
So is
And
that
the
still?
same thing coming back to you.
Coming back to you is you to me, none of the members. So that's where we thought it was out there, so I do apologize.
I must have missed it, sorry.
Okay. So continue with that protocol.
Okay, thank you. We will. Are there any committee comments? See no public comments. At this time, we'll adjourn. Thank you very
Move to
much.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second?
All those in favor?
Take your little candies with you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the September 11th, 2019 Planning Board meeting of the Town of Raymond. The Planning Board will come to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Mike D'Angelo.
Greg Foster.
Bruce Sanford.
Ed Kranich.
Kyle Bancroft.
Kevin Woodry.
The board has a quorum. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. We have one item, and that's the Keystone Investment Group additional duplex residential apartments proposed for 1455 Roosevelt Trail. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, state their name, address, and affiliation with the application. For, opposed, neutral. All persons speaking shall address the chairman. Any conversation must be held in abeyance until after the board has formally adjourned. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of the board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. Okay, new business, we have Keystone Investment Group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Justin Rome. I'm a civil engineer with DM Roma Consulting Engineers. Here tonight, representing Keystone Investment Group, LLC. The application is for sketch plan review on 2-acre piece of property located at 1455 Roosevelt Trail. Property currently has a existing 2-family duplex structure on it, which is the kind of the light brown building you see in the middle of that diagram there. There's 2 other structures on the property that are outbuildings. One's a garage and a shed structure. Again, the lighter colors there. The lighter gray color represents the existing driveway that comes in and serves the development. So there's 2 levels to this existing duplex building. So there's a parking area on the lower level, and there's a driveway that comes up around to the upper level for parking up there as well. The proposal is to add an additional duplex building on the rear part of the property. We're going to be widening out the driveway to accommodate 2-way vehicles and emergency vehicles better, get it out to 20 feet wide, and we're going to add parking spaces to the pavement extension in the back. We're adding 6 spaces there because we're kind of displacing a couple of vehicle parking spaces where they don't use them. They have exclusive use to that driveway in the back, so that's going to now be a kind of a dedicated driveway for additional dwellings. So we're adding those spaces to the bank of parking in front of the new building. This applicant is the same applicant that came forward and proposed the 2 duplexes on the lot to the east of this, which the board had approved. So that project hasn't started yet, but this is kind of a similar arrangement. But in this case, the building is going to stay, where in the other case we were having 2 brand new structures. We've had a septic system designed in this location right here. If you recall, the replacement leach field on this property is in this location, so we've got kind of the 2 septic systems in the same general area here, with the wells kind of flanking on the outsides over here. So keeping those on the outside, septic's in the middle. This site is much less steep than the other site was. I know we had some concerns about grade on the other site. We do continue to climb up the hill here, but we have a much flatter transitional period along the roadway. And then, you know, we have a slightly steeper area here, but none of this driveway is as steep as what was next door, so it's a better situation. Stormwater still remains to kind of just come down the hill. We're going to kind of divert it around the outside of this building here. As it's coming down the hill, we're going to direct it over to a level spreader in this area. This area is predominantly grass area. It's not as heavily wooded as the other site was. So we are sizing this out as a meadow buffer, even though there are some trees down through there. But we're using the meadow buffer methodology, which requires longer berms and a longer flow path length for that. So again, be directing as much water as we can coming down the hill into that buffer area. This is the existing leach field for this lower building, which is going to stay. So this new leach field is only going to serve the new dwelling. Other than that, it is a somewhat similar project to what was right next door to it, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
We received comments from our staff. Do we want to address those, Jim?
Yeah, we looked at this, and to Dustin's credit, it's very almost identical to what we had just approved on the abutting property, so a lot of the comments are very similar in nature. Based on the sketch plan, we'll need to show proof of the wastewater system. And the only other question I had with that, similar to the other side, was do you think we'll need to build or drill an additional well? Because I know before we weren't sure whether we had capacity, so if we do, we just got to make sure we got adequate separation between that and the septic. And I don't know if there's anything with the two septic systems being close, if there's any separation requirement. I don't think there is, but okay.
No.
To your point, I know you've got a buffer. We didn't see that on the initial sketch, so we'll want to see how you're going to handle erosion control and stormwater runoff. Sounds like you have a plan in place for that. I think the biggest issue, though, is that even though the grade's not as steep, I do think that, and maybe in the fire department's comments which we received, there may be some concern about the amount of area we have to turn around a fire truck. They were going to utilize that access to the garage as part of the fire truck turnaround. I don't know if that's long enough for the fire department. I think they have a similar comment or concern, so that may be something we just need to look at or maybe work through with the fire department. As far as it goes with this design, we'd be looking for the very same designs we did before, 20-foot wide paved width with small shoulders. I assume there'll be some kind of association, or whether that be all under one ownership for the maintenance? Yeah, single ownership, right?
Single ownership, okay. We'll want to see utility connections, services. Right now, it's overhead power to the existing duplex. I think we prefer to see underground, but we just need to know if you're going to drop a pole in or how you're going to get it to that other duplex. I don't know what the condition is. I haven't been up there, but I know we were going to replace the other culvert on the other driveway. I'm guessing that these probably are similar in age. I don't know if it's what the condition is, but we're probably going to have to extend that, and that's just be something to take a look at the condition. Does it warrant to add another section of pipe, or do you need to replace the whole thing? That's the same as we had before on the other one. Talking to the fire inspector Wayne, I think he's looking to have the existing duplex sprinkled. Definitely the new new duplex will need to be sprinkled as part of our fire protection ordinance. And then just delineating parking spaces and making sure we have enough parking spaces. And then obviously, similar to the other one, is we'll just need to confirm what the E911 address will be for this, for these units. I'm guessing, what did they do on the other ones? A, B, C, D?
I'm not sure if they've been addressed yet.
Probably wouldn't until we got a permit.
Have the same address?
Well, we'd have to talk with the 911 addresser, and we'd probably have to see what would work for up in there.
Yep.
usually when we get a building permit before it can be released, we give it a address at that time and make sure it's okay with the fire department as well.
And if that, we've been talking about that as one of the changes going forward for new applications, is trying to get the addresses for multi-units or subdivision lots on the plan. So if we can, it'd be great to look at that so we can get it on the plan. It just makes everybody's life a little easier up front when we're trying to assess utility connections or locations and just general, knowledge of the location. So that's all we have. I mean, these comments are almost identical to what we faced with the other site. The good thing is to Dustin's note, the driveway is not as steep as the other one.
Okay, this application didn't come in time to meet the deadline for public
No, I don't
hearing
think they had, it'll be the
anything like
next,
that, so
when they
it'll be
come in.
next meeting?
I think he's planning on coming in.
Correct.
Very
Yeah, so-
soon, and the next meeting would be the public hearing for this.
Okay, so tonight we can't take any action even as far
No,
as
but you can
accepting
have
the
an open
application, but
dialogue.
we can, the board is, welcome to ask any questions or anything that needs to be clarified.
I've got one question. How are you handling plan on handling the sheet flow to the west as it approaches that existing driveway that may not be long enough for the fire truck? Are you going to put a storm drain in to the north and run a pipe underneath it, or just kind of trench down and run a culvert underneath that driveway, or what?
Yep,
So the initial idea here was to just basically just run the water over the pavement area and let it continue to run down the road and then get it off the road this way. So that was our initial intent. This plan wasn't in your packets, but I just brought it with me tonight just to kind of facilitate some of these questions. So that was our initial intent, was to just bring the water around the building here and then just run it over the driveway and then get it off the pavement quickly, in this area, and then bring it to the level spreader. Because this would be a pretty long culvert to get underneath all that area.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like it'd probably be, 35, 40 feet long.
To your point though, Bruce, I know on the other one, we had the discussion in the back of those units about an underdrain, because you have all that water coming off the back of the hill. So
Right.
maybe that might, lead us to make some kind of drainage improvement.
Something, I'm just concerned that all that water running across the driveway in a freeze condition is just gonna be it's gonna be a slippery mess.
Okay.
You might wanna think about that a little bit.
That's a good point.
Oh, and as far as the driveway not being long enough to the garage, it's up to you to design it. I'm just wondering if you could just shift all those 6 parking spaces 9 feet to the right and lengthen the driveway by 9 feet, and you'd probably have a 40-foot approach to the front of the garage instead of 30 feet.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way we kind of looked at it, and we'll make sure the fire department's okay with this. I mean, we thought this was going to work for most apparatus. If you had a ladder truck or something that came up in there that needed big space, certainly, this area here, as long as we strike this out so that this area remains a fire lane in front of the building. The thought was that, this could be used if
back down to
absolutely
that
necessary.
area.
Because that way no one's backing out onto the road.
As opposed to just pulling
As
into the
opposed
front
to
of the
doing this,
garage and backing out.
You could back into this space and then come right out that way.
Well, that's up to the FD to.
Yeah, and I think the thing too, with that lower parking lot, we'd have to see how it's striped too, so what you have for a lane that's left after, because people park on both sides of that, you may not end up with much of a
Yeah, and then
lane.
particularly with the water control, if that's a frozen condition in the middle of the winter, so that's all the more reason to consider how we're gonna handle the water coming off the hill. Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments on it? Okay, do we have any other communications from Jim?
Not at this point. The only thing is, I know Bob's not here. One of the things, if he were here, he'd be looking to see how you guys are working on your comments about the road connectivity.
ordinance revisions that we're looking at. I know we've been busy, so we haven't we haven't done our homework either, but I think that's something that when he gets back, he's gonna be, you know, poking the bear to get some initiation on that. And coming into the fall, it's typically when we start looking at our ordinance revisions. So along with that, if there's other ordinances that you think that need some sprucing up or have questions about, now's the time to start asking those questions. And we'll probably plan a workshop, you know,
Because I got a few.
towards the end of the year. We'll have a workshop where we can start ironing out the program for ordinance changes or anything we want to do with ordinances going into 2020.
Okay, sounds like we all have a little homework.
Yeah.
Look at that,
Yeah.
see what come up with.
Yeah, and with regards to this, I know on the other site, we did a site walk. I don't know if you want to do a site walk for this applicant. I think we have a good sense of what's out there now. I don't think it's necessary.
Seems like it has less challenges than the
Yeah,
other one.
yeah, so.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Do we need to move the table this, or is it not really?
It's not even an application. I mean, it's just an informal discussion at this point. I think the only question I'd have for Dustin is, you know, when are you planning on, when are you gonna have an application ready?
Yep, we were planning to drop it off today, but where we had the meeting tonight, we wanted to kind of make sure that, you know, there was any other last minute questions, so we're going. Yeah, so we'll have everything in submitted by the end of the week, so we'll be on for the next meeting.
Yep. If the board's fine with that, we'll put it on for the next meeting. I don't think there's a whole lot here that.
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Okay.
I move we adjourn. Second. 18 minutes. That's
All in favor?
not your record, but it's pretty close.
Motion passes, we're adjourned.
Good evening and welcome to the October 9th, 2019 Planning Board meeting for the Town of Raymond. The Planning Board will come to order. The board does have a quorum. I'll start roll call. Mike, start with you.
Mike D'Arcangelo here.
Bruce Sanford.
Ed Kranich.
Robert O'Neill.
Greg Foster.
Kyle Bancroft.
Kevin Woodbury.
This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. We have one application today from Keystone Investment Group. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, state their name, address, and affiliation with the application. For opposed or neutral, all persons speaking shall address the chairman. Any conversations must be held in abeyance until after the board has formally adjourned. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision, because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights. And also, as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regard to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussions. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Supreme Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's records evidences your appearance this evening in opposition as a basis for your opposition. So our first new business is the Keystone Investment Group, which is second appearance, right, on this?
It is, yep.
Yep, and just I'm gonna skip the town and go right to you.
Sure. So Dustin Roma with DM Roma Consulting Engineers representing Keystone Investment Group LLC, proposing a construction of an additional duplex building, 1455 Roosevelt Trail. We were in front of you previously as a sketch plan application, and since then we had put together grading and drainage plan, a final septic system design for a leach field over in this area, and utility design for the proposed duplex.
We did have an opportunity to review Mr. Seymour's memo, along with Wayne's memo as well from the fire department's perspective. We met with all of us together in Scott's office last Thursday and went over the plans and how we intended to address some of those comments. A couple of those comments had actually been brought up at the planning board meeting, but we hadn't fully addressed them at the time of the submission. So these plans that you have in front of you here tonight address those last few remaining comments that Jim had bulleted out in his review memo here. So I think most efficient thing, I'm just going to go down here and just kind of explain how each of those have been addressed. And again, these are all discussed at our meeting with Jim and Wayne on Thursday and then reflected on these plans. So one question was about the existing well and whether or not it would be sufficient to provide water to both the buildings. So we did show a potential second well location that could be installed that's outside of the 100-foot setbacks of the leach fields, and kind of designated that area for an additional well if it's needed. A lot of our discussion focused around fire protection needs for the project. One of the concerns was whether or not this driveway here was going to be deep enough for a fire truck to be able to pull in and back up and exit the site without hitting the garage. So we've added a second hammerhead turnaround in this location. What that does is basically this portion of the driveway would function as geometry as if it was a dead-end road. So we've got this additional turnaround area that we're going to sign as no parking. And it would be, in addition to this area, which we're also going to call no parking. So a fire truck could come in, back up, leave this way, or in the event they come in this way, they could certainly come in, back up, and come back down. This area serves as a turnaround area as well. So again, we've got multiple points where vehicles can come in and turn around, even larger vehicles, and exit out without having to back out onto 302. We've also revised the plans to remove the overhead electrical line that's coming to the existing duplex building. We're going to be installing it underground, so when we run buried electrical to this building, we're going to also run it underground and swap out the meter here on the building to bring that underground. The other item, there was a memo that Wayne had put out on the 4th, which addressed kind of what we had talked about on the meeting last Thursday. Specifically that the existing duplex building, as a condition of the construction of the new building, would have a addressable fire alarm installed in the building now. And in the future, if renovations were done to that building, then we would install a sprinkler system at that time. But that's in lieu of, because we weren't proposing any changes to that building right now, so we wouldn't have to go in and completely retrofit it with a sprinkler system. But at a time in the future, if work is to be done, then we would do it then.
When you're changing occupants, something like that.
Right. Well, if any physical work is to be done on the building, then as part of the building permit application, that would trigger the need to upgrade that building with a sprinkler system.
Okay, but that would be put off till sometime in the future when you had work to do.
Right. But for now, we'd put an addressable alarm system on there so that if there were a fire, that it'd be notified at the fire department.
Okay.
So, yep. And then all the widening and everything is similar to what we had proposed previously. All that information will be added to the site plan as conditions of approval. What we propose to do is wait for Jim to basically just completely draft his findings of fact. That way we can mirror those onto the site plan, and we'll make sure to include all those on there as well. Number 3, verification of septic design by CEO. We did talk about that at our Thursday meeting, and it was just a question about the proximity to the other system, and I believe Scott indicated everything was okay with what we had proposed. Number 4, crowding of the driveway. We've included grades on here, which actually sends the water off the sides of the driveway rather than sending it right down the middle. So the grading's been updated on this plan. The removal of the existing roadside culvert. Jim's just asked us to confirm with DOT that they're okay with us getting rid of that culvert. That culvert had been buried for many years. They've just gone out and started ditching some of that area. And had that completed, so this culvert's now exposed. But there's a culvert here that goes underneath 302, so any water that comes down the hill actually goes under the road, because this is a lower culvert than this one. So I think this was done after the fact, and
That's why that one being buried didn't create any drainage issues, so. But we will just, we've sent a request in the DOT, and we'll just get confirmation that they have no
No
issues.
water comes the other way into that?
No, because, well, basically, this all goes in the other direction here, so,
Okay.
so any water that falls on this side of the driveway goes this way. Anything that comes on this side is gonna go directly through that culvert, so. The letter of financial capacity will be provided as a condition. That's number 6. Number 7 was just to add phosphorus point calculations to the plan, which we did on the site plan. Number 8 was to add this additional drain. That's the one that I mentioned was referenced at the last meeting that we neglected to add. So we have added a type F catch basin here in the back corner, along with a drain that brings it underneath the driveway and brings it out here to the level spreader. So that will handle the water that comes down off the hill, will all get collected there and piped underneath the road, so it won't flow over the pavement. Number 9 deals with the placement of underground utilities to the existing building, which we are now proposing. And number 10 has to do with the maneuverability of the vehicles in and around through here. So again, adding the additional hammerhead addresses that previous question. So, so I believe with that, that's just a highlight of how we've again addressed these last few comments on this plan, and I'd like to hear any questions that you may have about this, and we'll continue to work with Jim after this just to make sure, again, all these conditions and everything get added to the plan prior to the board signing anything.
Dustin, just as a point, we've been seeing a lot of you. The board has like a long-standing rule not to accept things the day of the.
Yep.
Because we just don't have enough time.
Sure.
To view it over and things kind of get passed through. This is a little bit different because it's really just addressing the conditions that were
Right.
already discussed. But in the future, just so you know, it's not normally that we would accept something to review the day of the meeting.
Yeah.
I have a question about the septic system. Because it's a proprietary system, it doesn't require the square footage to get the same yield, I guess, as a standard one?
Right, so there's different sizing criteria if you do a stone bed, if you do plastic chambers, or if you do Elgin, so they've
So
got.
there's a factor in
Correct.
converts, okay.
Yep.
So can I just ask about the well? Are you gonna, is that gonna be tested in terms of how much water is coming in there prior to everyone moving in and then maybe finding out that it's not gonna work, or?
Yeah, so basically, the plan there is to, we'll consult with the well driller and look at the yield of that particular well. If it's in question, we'll drill a new well, because we don't want to have water pressure issues for tenants, so.
So you would do a yield test on an existing well?
Yeah.
And there's no cistern involved now. You're gonna run it right off the well.
Correct.
Yeah. How old is the existing septic system?
I'm not sure exactly when this was built. I'm not sure the age of that system. I mean, the soils out here are fairly good. We've got area, this is the location of that existing field. If there were to be a failure at some point in the future, we've got room kind of on adjacent sides to replace it if we needed to.
Fire department is okay with both the design of the driveway and also the issue of the existing building, so that what you're planning to do is sufficient to satisfy fire on the existing building. I know that it's pre-existing, so you don't want to have to go to the expense of putting in sprinkler now, so fire is okay with delaying that until you do maintenance or some kind of
Yeah, I mean,
renovation.
I could ask Wayne to answer that, just so
Mike, we'll get
I
Wayne.
won't speak for him.
Yep.
Yeah, we met with Dustin, and this was an alternative that we came up with to the fire alarm system. By doing the fire alarm system, we're getting a quick notification to hopefully minimize the amount of water that we might need in the case of a fire in the existing building, with the caveat that any remodeling anything going on with that existing building will trigger it, requiring a sprinkler system at that time.
Plus you're going underground with the electrical.
And underground with the electric, which is a huge asset to us.
Any other concerns, Wayne, that were not addressed?
When we talk about no parking, it's fire lane, no parking, so we need to be very specific that way. That the signs say fire lane, no parking. Dustin's seen an example of what we're looking for signs, so that would be the only other thing.
Okay. Yep, you're up. Okay.
As far as they asked a question about the septic system, I looked at that first building was built in year 2000, so it's relatively new.
Any other questions of the board? I know this, I've got to, okay, just for a moment, I'm going to open the public hearing and then close the public hearing, so nobody from the public. So I was not at the last meeting. Did you go through all of the step-by-step process here, or do we need to do that each of the, and actually a little bit, was it tabled or from the last, and was the application?
It was a sketch plan last time, so this is the first.
Okay, so the application has not been deemed complete?
Indeed, had not, no, not
Okay.
yet.
So actually, we're a little bit behind. And the first thing I'd like to do is then take a motion to deem the application complete.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? And all that's opposed? Okay. Then my next question is, did you get a chance to go through each of these with,
No,
so,
we didn't go through the ones that came on Jim's memo
from the criteria?
Yeah, no, they haven't, they didn't do that last
done
week.
that. Okay.
far.
All right. All right, so the application is reviewed under the subdivision regulations, Article 1. I'm going to, I think, we're pretty close, and the board's pretty familiar with this, fairly similar to the other project, if I'm correct, right? So I'm not going to, unless there's objections, I'm not going to ask for a vote for each individual item. I was just going to read through them, what the item is. If there's somebody that would like to ask a question on it, or feels we need more discussion, please stop me. Otherwise, I'm just going to go through this. Alpha will not result in undue water or air pollution. In making this determination, the planning board shall consider the elevation of the land and the nature of the soils, the slope of the land, and the applicable state and local health and water resources. And I think that from your discussion that has been accomplished. Has sufficient water available for reasonably foreseeable needs in the subdivision. That's being addressed with the second well, and you're going to do some tests on the well itself. Item Charlie will not cause any unreasonable burden on the existing water supply if one is to be utilized. And is there a sufficient distance between the wells that exist right now?
Just to provide adequate water supply?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we're proposing a separate location that is...
No, to the adjacent properties.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yep, okay. Delta will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in capacity of the land to hold water. I think that has been addressed. Will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. And this 8.6% slope's okay with you, right?
I'm sorry, what was
The 8.6% slope of the driveway?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, Wayne indicates yes. Foxtrot will provide for adequate soil and sewage waste disposal. That's been done. Gulf will not cause any unreasonable burden on the ability of the town of Raymond to dispose of solid waste or sewage. Hotel will not place an unreasonable burden on the ability of the town of Raymond to provide municipal or governmental services. India will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area. And you submitted photos of the area so that we can determine that? I'm only kidding.
I don't believe so, but, you know, we saw it on the sidewalk for the one next door.
Juliet is in conformance with the subdivision ordinance, comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, floodplain management ordinance, and other duly adopted town ordinances. Yeah, that's been done. Hill, the subdivider has adequate financial and technical capacity, meaning that's going to stay as a condition. Lima, whenever situated entirely or partially within a watershed of any pond or lake, more than 250 feet of any wetland, great pond, river, it's not applicable. Mike will not alone or in conjunction with existing activities adversely affect the quality, quantity of groundwater or aquifers. November, based on the federal emergency management plan, boundary waterway maps and flood issuance, information presented to the applicant whether subdivision is in the floodplain area is not. All freshwater wetlands, that's not applicable. Any river, stream, or brook, it's not applicable. Quebec, the subdivision will provide for adequate stormwater management, and that has been done, right? You get all that in there. Romeo, if any lots in the proposed subdivision, that's not applicable. The long-term cumulative effect of the proposed subdivision will not unreasonably increase Great Ponds. That's done. And for any proposed subdivision at Crossmith, that's not applicable. Okay. Bring any other questions to mind going through? All right.
So our only conditions are K. That's it?
Financial capacity, yep. And let's see, and
All of the fire department's comments are going to be added as conditions of approval, so they're enforceable as well.
yeah. And what about, and the culvert, we're gonna just leave as,
Yeah, you could just say that requires just confirmation that DOT
DOT
approves the
confirmation.
removal of the culvert.
That 24-inch that crosses 302 is operational, functional.
Yeah, like I said, the culvert for this driveway has been buried for years, so it just got dug out this year.
all right. Well, when you're talking about Jim's comments, fire department's okay, but Jim's comments are,
They were the high points of the conditions of approval that he had in here. These were some of his concerns that he had with the crowning of the road
and that's been taken care of.
yeah.
So we have the item 6, the financial capacity, we have the culvert from the DOT, and we have the fire department's memo, conditions, right? As noted in your letter, would that work? They're all in there, aren't they?
There's 2 letters.
There's actually 3 memos you might have in front of you.
I've got one.
Did you have the September or the October?
October 1.
October.
October. So.
Wayne, could you just go to, I'm sorry, could you go to the mic? Right, then.
So, there was 3 memos that were generated. The first 2 dealt with a number of the conditions. The third one dealt with, the third memo dealt with language to address the fire alarm system, the sprinkler system, and for the existing building. So those conditions are all laid out in 3 memos. We'll need to condense them into a list. You need that cleaned up from us to you, or?
We would need them cleaned up, yeah.
Okay, we can do that. We can combine all that together and submit a new memo that has it all spelled out.
That would be perfect, yeah. That work for you?
Sure.
Yeah.
And that no parking fire lane.
Yeah, and that's in one of those memos, the no parking fire lane, so.
So we'll, we can work with the fire department conditions, 3 memos, September, October, November? Not November yet.
How soon I can get them?
No, just the dates, rough, I mean, not only an exact date.
Yep.
But if you have them, that would be great.
September 9th. was the
September
first one.
9th, October 1st, and October 4th.
Perfect.
Dates of the 4 memos. And I'll combine those all into one.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Anybody else have any questions or concerns? Everybody's happy? Yes. Who wants to give it a shot?
I'll give it a shot.
All right.
I move that the applicant is complied with the subdivision ordinance. Is that right?
Yep.
With the following conditions, that they confirm with DOT of the culvert to be removed, the financial capacity. Is that good enough?
Yep.
And the conditions as per the fire and rescue unit, the revised memo to combine the three memos from September 9th, October 1st, and October 4th.
Perfect.
Is that everything?
That's everything.
Do we need to have the well capacity statement in there also? Number one.
Would that become staff review?
Because it hasn't been confirmed
It hasn't been
yet.
confirmed yet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that probably ought to be in there too.
In addition,
Friendly amendment?
yeah,
Yeah.
that we include the capacity of the wells, that they be confirmed by staff.
Yep.
Yep.
No second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'm just going to abstain since I'm, oops, okay. I'm going to abstain because I missed some of the discussion. Motion pass.
Thank you so much.
You're all set.
Notice we're not reading minutes anymore.
Well, that's my next thing that I'm going to describe. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even pay you to say that, did I?
I think somebody is more than overwhelmed with their work.
So, yeah, discussion on minutes. Here, it's a lot of work for Mary to go and produce those kind of narrative portion of the minutes. And she produces them from the video, that is being, from the video record. And in my experience, every time there has been an issue, either by the applicant or the board asking for Scott or Chris to go back and research, they have always gone to the minutes to find out when the meeting was held, and then gone to the video record to see exactly what the discussion was. So I've been talking with Mary, and I'm wondering why in our minutes we don't simply have the application that was reviewed, the vote that it either passed or failed, and then simply directing anybody who wants the additional information to go to the video recording. And I mean, that's where the person is 9 times out of 10 going to go to anyway, to find out what, because you want to know the flavor of the discussion and not necessarily what Mary has picked out of the discussion. So that's my proposal to the board. What I don't know is whether or not that's legal, whether or not the lawyers will, what the lawyers will want to see.
At the town meeting, I think, wasn't it passed that the official record of all the committees is
Yes.
the video recording?
Yes.
It is,
Official
kind of-
record.
it is kind of a courtesy to do the minutes in written form. We just would want to make sure that it's okay that we don't have to do it at all, or
Just give a summary, little.
very quick,
And
yeah, very
elaborate
brief
on
summary,
the
vote,
agenda.
yeah, like I
Right.
said, what was
2-page.
brought up, vote, and was it passed?
Right.
Yeah, no.
My only concern is that if something if an applicant challenges the decision of the board, it goes to Superior Court. And will Superior Court, will they accept the video as the record, or do they want to vote it on specific minutes? And, I would think that the video is going to work, but I think we probably should ask the question.
Right, I would think so, because that's what the town voted on. It's in part of the ordinances now.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, the narrative of the minutes is not, it's never as accurate as what the video, has
Right,
in it. I
exactly.
mean,
No, it's just,
the narrative is
When you
kind of
go
like
through it
Trump's
5 times to catch the.
recategorization
Yeah.
of whatever he's talking about,
Yeah.
Mary, what does Sue do? She doesn't do everything, does she? Or-
For the select board sheet gives a lot of detail because that's what they want.
Okay.
They often call her and send her back to looking in the minutes to see what happened.
I actually send and it's not as good as what you'd like, the transcripts of the meeting. There's a service that we put the video through and they give us a transcript, written transcript.
It's quite entertaining.
It is sometimes when it comes out with, because it's done by computer and then and it comes back, but that gives at least something for you to go on versus having to write down everything as the meeting goes.
What about, maybe ask your lawyer if it would be acceptable at the start of the meeting, instead of having the narrative, the minutes, have a statement submitted by the person who does the filming and the cataloging of the video, that the video of the previous minutes of the last planning board meeting has been checked, it's operational, it's on file, and they give you a statement, and we just read that statement as part of the opening in place of the minutes,
and then go into the record.
and that kind of puts a stamp on it.
Yep. I mean, we have technology working for us and not doubling up.
Yeah, like I said, I usually get it done the next day.
Yes, he does.
Like the one, last night's meeting was up, today, so.
Oh, the video.
The video,
Yeah, yeah.
So
I know.
and what we do is we actually, so the video goes and it's hosted, it's on YouTube, so anybody can get it. You just have to go to our website and click on it and it pops it into our website and you view it there, but it's actually out on YouTube. And then we create two permanent long-term DVD copies, one which is held at the town office and one is held at my office right now. So in case there's a fire or something, we have a backup copy. So it's actually better than the written minutes, which only are held in one place, and so it's worked out pretty good. We have over 1,000 meetings that have been, put out there.
Should we send a memo to the town attorney just to confirm that, what we want to do?
Right.
Have just a summary, a written summary of.
A quick
4
1 or
minutes.
2 sentence summary.
So
Yeah,
Mary
and
could
then
confirm,
the,
because I send
The
her
video will be the official.
Right.
minutes.
the notification that with the transcript, which means the meeting is out there, so that would be my confirmation to her that the meeting is done and up and running.
So basically, you just kind of would want to know how do you approve the minutes basically during the meeting itself?
Yes.
Well, okay. All right, I can ask him that if you.
Yeah, would you? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's.
I mean, if you needed a further email from me saying it's up there and running, I could do that too.
I think, I think we probably
Yeah.
would need something to say that the recording has in fact
Been placed up.
been
online.
placed and
Yeah.
it's operational, we can see it, we can read
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And that would be what, in Vice, looking at approving the minutes, we would just be approving that statement. Does that sound okay with the board? Is that, I don't think we need a motion, but I think we're all, I think, all in agreement.
Yep.
that
So I
we
could
can
send
move that
you
way.
an email saying it's been placed online.
Yep, you can send me the email saying it's placed, and Mary, so that she can, when she writes the agenda, she can put it, as the first item of the agenda will be to approve, that CD as our record. And then I would suggest, Mary, you hold off on the minutes if you have not, until we get.
We have received one complaint about the minutes not being up to date.
Well.
So that's why, I mean, if we can get this answered quicker, the better.
Yes, well, I would say,
Because I have 4 hours blocked out tomorrow to put
Well-
everything else aside and do that.
I think if you can get an answer tomorrow, why don't, well, I tell you what, Mayor, why don't from the board, we will tell you to hold off on the production of the minutes until we hear back from the attorney.
That's fine.
Is that all right with the board? Everything, okay? Okay. What else do we have?
The subdivision loop roads.
Yeah, subdivision loop roads. Have we done anything on that? And I have to admit, I ran out of house without that folder.
Well, I looked into it a little bit, and in our regulations for the road construction, it does discuss that particular issue. And any development that is going to generate 200+ trips per day will have to have at least 2 street connections with an existing public street.
Right.
So it does cover you know, a major amount of what would be our concern. I'm not sure what the factor is for trips per day per unit. You know, I looked up some old stuff about
calculation,
nines.
right.
Yeah, but
This is what I had in my folder. I think it was abuse.
Oh, this is the,
Previous things.
Oh, yeah,
Jim
that's-
had-
Yes,
Jim
okay,
gave us
right,
that.
Yeah,
yep.
from other
Thank you.
towns.
I think that is specifically addressing a true loop road, you know, where we are looking at a say 85 with a big subdivision, that it would go like that. I think what we are more interested in is a road that would connect this to two different roads. And this may or may not be the same subdivision.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
what,
if this did have the two connections here and here, this really wouldn't be necessary, and for these people, it would be, well, actually, for probably most of them, they wouldn't like that.
no, they're not gonna like it at all.
No.
No.
It's gonna,
And I think that's one of
Disconnect
the,
would be there.
the thing you have
Right.
to worry
So
about
it
is,
wouldn't be connected at all.
are you going to make it into a shortcut, you know, for people to cut through
correct,
a residential area, which you don't want to do?
which we don't wanna do. But the advantage would be if the other division is here, right, then for trash collection, for bus pickup, you could come through this way, or maybe even eventually go through that way. You know, that's the advantage of reducing the mileage for both, too many ways on here, but for both emergency response,
Yeah, and service.
trash collection, services, bus routes. But you're right, these guys would not be happy. And I don't know how to, none of the ordinances, I think, address that. Have you come across it, Scott? As to,
No, you basically, you buy the lot where you buy the lot. If that happens to be the one where the most traffic is gonna be coming in and out of.
no, we're thinking, so if you, what would have been an example? You know, not a good example, but remember not that long ago, we approved a subdivision, it was connected to another subdivision by a road that wasn't used very often. Do you remember that one?
There was one off of.
121 Oak Ridge, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
Oak
right.
Ridge, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a dispute on that one, wasn't it, as to whether or not, so that continuity, it was basically gated off.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
That other road it connected to was a dead end, wasn't it? Or did it?
Well, it connected up to Daggett.
Daggett Drive
Yeah,
and Oak
Yeah.
Ridge.
Oak Ridge and up to
Right.
Daggett. And I'd be honest with you, I wasn't here at that time. I don't know the circumstances why it was closed off.
Oh, well, that's unimportant.
Yeah.
It was that type of arrangement, is that we would be looking at a subdivision going in where we would be either mandating or some way saying that we would like this connected
Mm-hmm,
to this other subdivision,
mm-hmm.
right? Whether it can be is the issue, and,
Yeah, because,
or do we not even address it to another subdivision, but we just lay the groundwork now to have a road dead end at the end of the property that can be used at some future time if other land is developed?
yeah, because right now there is one subdivision, a gentleman owns lands that abuts to it, and right now there's a right-of-way that comes in and stops at his property. He was interested in seeing that he could possibly do a subdivision on his lot and attach to that and be able to use that road. However, it gets kind of complicated because right now he'd either have to get the people that are already in phase one to sign off on it, as well as the general contractor to give him access to use that. And I don't know if we'd have to word it somehow that they would be given that, or,
It would be a private road that he's connecting to?
yeah.
That makes
See,
it a
that's
lot
where,
more
yeah,
complicated, yeah.
yeah. And that's the other thing, is are some of these roads, is Raymond going to be a little more open to
Yes.
our town roads if they're connectivity?
Well, that's what I got from the selectmen.
Okay.
I don't want to say unanimously, but I did get an overwhelming,
Okay.
I did get a yes, we are receptive to accepting the town road, which may be in this situation we're talking about, that other subdivision, then that is maintaining that road, in their road association, would be able to turn it over to the town. And so they would not be as,
Yeah, wouldn't be, yeah, they'd actually free them from their burden from.
right,
Yeah, but is the town gonna accept the roads and the conditions that they're in, because the town specs or
They-
what generally?
They're kind of, there are a couple of them out there that have done this rock sandwich thing that is really not, Nate said he didn't like it.
Yeah.
And there was a question as to whether or not the town would ever accept that.
Right.
But, I mean, as far as the width and that, when they put some of these roads in, they already meet, except for paving, they already meet this town
Which is a
standards
huge,
anyway.
you know, when you go from a private road to using a good gravel cap to a pavement. I mean, so who would say that we have one of these guys that abuts a new subdivision?
Right.
The new subdivision willing to pave, it's, you know, or it's gonna hook into that second subdivision. Will the town take on that road without it being paved, with half of it being up to spec and the other half of the exit they tie into not be?
right, probably no,
Right.
would be my guess.
Yeah,
Probably should.
But they should, yeah, but I mean, that would be something we could, you know, we could put in, work into the ordinance as to whether or not, what level the town would accept to that adjacent road. You know, it's hard to quantify it as far as how much money it would save the town, but it may, in some cases, be a considerable amount of money, over the long haul.
And then going forward, if we decide to do that too, I mean, that could be one of them that they do put paving in the new subdivision roads.
Right.
So that going forward, you just have to tackle the old ones and figure out how to way to deal with them as to when they come up, as to how you could deal with them. Is it something that can be phased in, or something that would have to work for the existing roads that are not paved?
I mean, my concept, as a general contractor and looking at small parcels that I develop, it seems like it's gonna be a burden, you know,
On the developer?
Yeah, I mean, because when you have to switch from going to a nice gravel cap to a pavement, and then if they were to, you know, look at a sidewalk thing, which Raymond doesn't really have them, but there's always, you open up these, you know, now requirements. So if I wanted to go do the same job I do out here in Portland, it just, you're priced out of it relatively quickly when you start adding in pavement and the extra cost to get there, and then to not know, I mean, if you guys require it to come out, if you don't own that land already, you've already tabled that project. I mean, unless you have the land or the ability to hook into, you know, parcel, and then you put the developer in a situation where he's gonna have to come up with another budget in order to get that access out, you know? So I think that if it was gonna be looked at, we should look at it as a town. What are we really gonna gain from putting that ordinance in effect? I mean, as a whole picture, and what are we gonna do to the contractors and the building? Is it gonna just say, hey, you know, for a long time, Portland didn't have any subdivisions, you know, because there's so much stuff that you have to meet in criteria. Right. Now it makes sense, the market's, you know, doing well, so they're building again. I'm just worried about, you know, keeping everybody out of building, whether it be a 4-lot subdivision or I think there should be some kind of scale to that. Whether
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be even applicable to a minor subdivision.
Yep.
Because it just, there wouldn't be the land there to support it. I think we're talking about, you know, a major subdivision.
Yep.
That going in, you know, in like, you know, the 200 lot, somewhere 200, 100, whatever we would.
Sure.
Look at, there's a major subdivision.
Yeah, and I could see that.
Right, no, I wasn't even thinking, because I don't even think it would be applicable for a minor subdivision.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't have the land.
Right.
To connect it.
Yeah, that would be my only concern, is just on the smaller scale of the subdivision, is, you know, we don't want to burden the contractor any more than he has to be. I'm a contractor, so that's just my opinion on it.
So if I can just follow up on that, I think it's really good to get a contractor's perspective. I live on Daggett Drive. Our road is in pretty good shape. So we've paved it once and paved over it, and it's held up well. The neighboring subdivision that we're gated off of, the road's horrendous. There's no, they didn't put in a decent sub-grade under it, so they pave it, and 2 years later, it's got big wheel dents from the heavy trucks, or it's falling apart, it's alligating off, and that kind of thing. So it seems to me that those people are have been pretty unprotected. You know, and nowadays, in today's world, people come and buy a house that's in a subdivision, maybe they're from out of state, they're used to a lot of protections that we aren't perhaps providing them up here in Raymond. Like, that subdivision comes to mind fiercely to me because I feel so sorry for those people. This one guy lives at the end of the road and he's always, you know, he's on, I don't even know how they're gonna maintain it, you know, as years go by. So if we're gonna do this sort of thing, I think it might, but this would be real onerous on the developer. I think we might wanna put more stringent requirements on road construction, which of course are gonna add a lot to cost, but especially if we're thinking about blending subdivisions, if someone starts a subdivision, and I think it seems to me we ought to make them do the road better than maybe we have been doing it, but we also maybe should think about making a condition of approval that it's possible if another subdivision is developed that you have to link up to it.
Right, yeah.
Because certainly in my neighborhood, people would be really opposed to it unless you, one, make it a condition of approval, but also, I think it only makes sense that the town's gotta take those roads over because of the huge disadvantage of losing the privacy.
Your subdivision.
Yeah, as I say, it all
Yeah,
depends
it's
on
the
the number of lots.
Right.
If they get up to a certain number, they gotta meet town standards
It's the
anyway.
same, yeah.
It's, again, you kinda gotta decide, I guess, as to where that.
Where the threshold
Where the
is.
threshold's
Yeah,
gonna
but
be.
the
how many
problem with
lots.
that, if they start off with you know, a very small subdivision and they build a private road criteria in, then they want to expand it and they have to go back out and rip the private road out and full depth recreate it, you know, to bring it up to town standard. Maybe just requiring the town standard for any subdivision from the get-go, it's gonna be a minimal extra cost, really, when you're building the road. If you have to dig down another 3 inches or whatever and put in 3 inches more of gravel, it's not gonna be a huge deal, as opposed to having to go back out and dig it all out and full depth reconstruct it.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter, I mean, Jim and I do that when somebody comes in anyway for a small one, that we recommend, even though they could do private way or a backlot standard, to actually do the next criteria up for the road, just in case they ever wanted to lengthen the
Well,
road.
either that, or if they insist they only want to have a private road development from the start, that they can't subdivide it later, create a subdivision later on. They have to make that choice, you know.
Well, I guess if they're willing to redo the road, then they might as well be allowed to, you know, put in more units.
Well, it's just the expense. It's a lot less expensive to do it, you know, put in the extra gravel right when you're doing it from the first place, as opposed to going and have to rip it all out.
But maybe that's a choice we leave to that developer. Maybe.
Do they have to rip it all out?
Well, it depends on this, a lot of times, if they don't have the right subbase, they may have to, but it may just be as much as, you know, it all depends on what the shape the road is. If it's got a terrible subbase, then you're talking about a lot of money, tearing it up, digging down, redoing everything. Whereas, which you're gonna run into on some of these older roads if they try to connect to some of them, but.
That's where it'd be primarily the older roads where they were just improved larger roads, or
Yeah, I mean.
they're
Yeah.
not building anything now that can't be,
I mean, that'd be something to
Just
look at to
that.
see, because I mean, we're not the only town that has to deal with these, as to how other towns are
Yeah,
bringing
there's
some
5
of
of the
these,
towns that have it on the books.
you know, that bring these older roads. How do they do it? I mean, I know in Gorham, even if you lived on the end of the private way, if you wanted to build on there, you had to bring that whole road up to town standards.
That's right,
Well, yeah, otherwise
you were at
wouldn't-
Gorham, right?
Yep.
And Gorham has this
Yeah, you had to,
ordinance on the books.
you had to bring it up the whole distance of the road if you wanted to build, if you built on,
How
even at
did
the
it-
very end of it.
How did it work?
Mixed reviews, but
Resistance, I'm sure.
again, Gorham had the benefit of a lot of people wanting to build there, so developers were willing to put that extra money in to do that if it was worth their, you know, they would measure it to be worth their while that they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And just because that they knew that it would be nothing that they would have to sit on, it would go as quick as they could get it on the market, so you could get away with it, get out of there reasonably with a reasonable profit, that it wouldn't bother you as much. But if individuals, some people didn't build on their lot because of it. but that was just individual lots, but.
Right.
I mean, you might run into that, we got some of these roads here that are, some sections are really good, some sections are bad. It's just hard to do that, cause a lot of times you don't wanna put that burden on that one single person to improve that whole road, just so they can build a house at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though half of it's in great shape and the other half is not. So it's, I think Wyndham's doing something like that now, though, they're trying to clean up some of those older roads like that, but.
So Scott, the way that worked, as I recall, is like 1 to 5 houses was a certain threshold, and then 7 houses brought it up to another threshold. You had to build a road better because there'd be more traffic and it would wear out quicker.
Yeah,
So if someone had 5 houses in there and they wanted to put the 6th house, that put them past that first threshold, and then they'd have to do the whole road.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, it sort of made sense. I mean, nothing's perfect, that's for sure. But then that would be sort of the choice that the next guy would have, and it would allow the first 5 people to come in and not have to put as much money in. As,
Yeah, right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having one threshold for the whole town, that would be really quite expensive. You look at 5 compared to 50, and 5 houses compared to 50, you're gonna have a lot less traffic, a lot less wear and tear, therefore you don't have to put such a nice road. That made sense to me, but certainly not perfect.
I think a lot of it's gonna come down to is if the town decides to get on board with taking these roads, what are they gonna expect to see out of it? Are they gonna pavement, or that's how I would figure that it would be measured, is that, okay, now we're having this discussion that if we build it as a contractor, the town will take it, what's it gonna cost, and what's it gonna take to bring up? Are you guys gonna require curbs? Are we gonna require, because that's where things get added on to, well, I like this, I like that, and then it just gets, price, some projects will just not, get off the paper.
I did not talk to the selectmen about that, but my feeling was, from what their comments was, that they were expecting it to be paved.
Right.
I don't think they were expecting sidewalks
Sure.
or curbs.
Yep.
But they were expecting it to be paved.
Yep.
I mean, that might be a good input, and get something from Nate on that as well. Nate White, as far as what he'd like for, for subdivision, what they were gonna.
What they would, as far as the road acceptance goes?
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Well, we certainly should ask.
does our town guys have the capacity, looking out 10 years, we switch to this, and then, say this cycle continues, and then another cycle, are we gonna be able to keep up with this if, we keep approving subdivisions? We have some space in town, I think that we still have a lot of area that
yes.
can be developed. What's the capacity of the town if they set the rules and everybody starts following them? Are they gonna be able to keep up with that extra work? Are they gonna be able to keep up with, everything that goes into maintaining, all
the
that,
roads.
snow plowing, ditching, so on?
Yep. Yeah. I think the answer to that was a yes. And I
Well,
think-
P&K's taking
Yeah.
care of the plow. We'll see how they do this year, because I hear that they're rolling out, it's a new plan this year, so I'm interested to see, how that keeps up. I got full faith in them, don't get me wrong, but, we'll see what happens.
I think the trade-off to that is, a lot like what Mike was saying, the trade-off is that the town's not gonna be getting people, that were expecting a road, and it's deteriorating regularly, and they
Yeah.
have no option
Right.
to be able to get it fixed, because the neighbors don't wanna fix it.
Right, yeah, and that's definitely, something we see a lot of, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunate, and I can see that side of it
Yeah.
as well. It'll be, I think that is a bigger picture, we need to see, what's the benefit of enacting this? What's the real, we've talked about, rescue and fire to be able to get in a little bit better.
Right.
There's some tight spots in town, but I think that moving forward with what we have in place, we generally take care of that with hammerheads and loops.
Mhm.
Trash collection, does that help us at all? Does it take away from the trash guys that have the private dumpsters? What's the real advantage, I guess, to the town and its people? And then what's the cost associated with that advantage, if there is any, having that
No,
extra work?
those are great questions, Kyle. Unfortunately, I don't even know how to address the cost side of that.
Sure.
I think it's easy to address the cost of how much it's gonna cost to produce it.
Yeah.
And probably even Nate could tell us how much it's gonna cost to maintain it.
Yeah.
Right? But on the flip side is, what's the cost of the fire and rescue saving, 2 minutes in a response?
Mhm.
you know, you're not gonna be able to quantify it.
Absolutely, no, I
You know,
agree with that, yeah.
Or, I mean, you probably could quantify it a little bit of the trash collection, because based upon X number of miles
Right.
saved, right? But that is gonna be a growing number. If it catches on and goes,
Right.
that will be increasing. You know, so, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say that it's not a money-saving
Yeah,
proposition. It's more of a convenience and safety.
yeah,
You know, the kid spends half an hour on the bus instead of,
right.
you know, 45, 50 minutes on the bus,
Mhm.
right? So what's the savings?
But just in that instance, right, so we extend these roads out, and then our bus routes all run longer. We use more fuel to go down there, instead of picking up at a central location.
Well, you should use less fuel. That's the whole point. If you're driving less mileage, you're gonna use less
Well,
fuel.
if you access those loop roads and you run, say 85 Plains Road, 121, we have pickups at, Daggett Drive, Tower Road, everybody walks down in there. Now, if we have to send a bus up into every one of those, is there
Oh,
any
you-
savings we have?
No, but you wouldn't. I mean, that would.
They would just still
Yeah,
continue, okay,
sure.
yeah. Fair enough.
All right, so how do we proceed? I mean, I think we'll have to make sure Jim listens to the CD here.
Yeah,
Let's not let Mary
we'll bring him
transcribe
up
this
to, I'll bring him up to par on that and see, I think we'd wanna get some input from, I mean, it sounds like we need to kind of really focus on what we're gonna do for cutoffs, what we'd like to do, and then maybe Jim can get it in a presentation enough that we could kind of start to mold it into something.
Yeah, maybe Jim could pick what he likes best. And either you or him talk to the other towns as to what problems they've had
Mm-hmm.
with it. You know, the 5 towns that have it, as to whether or not, how it's worked
Yeah,
and what problems they've had. And maybe we could try to work that stuff out of our proposed ordinance.
mm-hmm, yep.
Are we thinking about doing this retroactively to existing subdivisions or
No.
only new?
No.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
good sense, I think.
And I think one of those things we want to kind of put in there is somehow, Scott, for whether or not it's going to be a mandatory or whether or not it's voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to be mandatory with conditions that the planning board can say, these conditions are not met, or these conditions are
Yep.
indeed met, and this has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know just about every subdivision that we did in Gorham, it was paved. But most of those were probably 20 to, there was some probably around the 10 range that they paved the roads.
10 homes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the biggest, but a lot of people paved them anyway, even the ones that had just 1 or 2 houses on it, because they wanted it paved, but.
Gorham's a little bit different market as well.
Oh, yeah.
For
You
sure.
know,
That's what I mean. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's, the other thing is that you're trying to embrace that Raymond might be in that situation. And it's better to kind of be proactive rather than
Exactly.
wait till it gets here and then like, oh,
Right.
all right, now
Right.
we gotta figure it
Right.
out. Basically be in the mess that, Wyndham had, like cleaning up with some of their roads. I mean, we've got a little bit of it
Right.
on some of these camp roads. They're always gonna be like that,
Right.
but,
And we learned a lot during our last cycle
yeah.
on the subdivisions.
So I'll bend Jim's ear here when he gets back.
Okay.
And,
And we can get something, just a draft, to at least start looking at.
Mhm.
So Kyle can pick it apart for us and tell us how much.
It's a good picking.
Get all his buddies to pick it.
Yeah. Yeah, they will too.
No, actually though, but your comments are, they're important.
Yeah.
Because we do need to look at the other side.
Well, I mean, the most important thing when we look at, developing land is the cost of that road. That road is ever so important, because a lot of people just walk away when those, restrictions get too much, or the cost of it gets too much, where there's just not enough margin on it. And I'd hate to see, we want to see some paced growth here, but I'd hate to
Right.
see it just be stomped out because of, just not be able to get that road in, or that being the tipping factor where
we can have some more revenue in the town because of it, you know. But I also see your side of it, you know, where trash collection response with the emergency services, and so, and if we could find I think it's just about making sure that we find a happy medium. We're not scaring people, but we're not, you know, we're saying, hey, we're not being unreasonable about it either.
Exactly.
This is what we're trying to meet in the middle.
Right.
I think if we can find that blend, I think we're just fine.
Okay.
You know, making it optional would make a huge difference in that regard. It'd leave it up to the developer to decide if they're gonna make the connection or not.
Yeah.
Well. I
They're
think-
not every time.
I mean, from our standpoint, it would never happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you almost kind of, yeah,
We-
you
you
want to nudge them in the right direction is
right,
what you want to
right.
do, yeah.
Yeah, but there may be some carrots that we could hold out,
Yeah,
you know, to the developer,
Yeah.
as far as lot size, as far as frontage on the
Yep, exactly.
private, you know, frontage on the town road. I mean, those things
Yeah.
are, we could do, that if you get another 2 lots out of the deal,
Exactly.
it might be worthwhile.
Just like I think just like anything else with development, if there's a give and take feel to the relationship, I think that, you know, it'll be just fine.
Okay.
As long as I've been on a few things where it's like, no, this is how we do it, and you know, we'll just, okay, well, we'll see you next time.
So I'm a little concerned about, it seems to me if someone starts a new subdivision, it seems to me those people who are buying those lots and those houses ought to be on notice that there could be another subdivision that's gonna be connected, and so people are gonna be driving through to that other subdivision. I
Yes,
think that's important.
I agree, yeah.
How are you gonna predict that, though? I mean,
Well, I
with
think-
land ownership and
I'm not,
subdividing and what's gonna happen 20 years from now, who knows?
I'm not saying that you're gonna know that, I'm just saying that people ought to know it's a possibility.
No,
Yeah, if they're on a town road,
Right.
it's possible that they're,
If we're leaving a dead end on a subdivision, then it should have like a designated right of way for a future extension, then, that would indicate to everyone that it is a possibility.
Yeah, there's still gonna be, till it goes in there, they're not really gonna think about it, and that's usually when I get a call.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, like I said, there's not gonna please everybody, so.
No.
Okay.
all right?
Well, we're not gonna solve it tonight.
No, I think we're on a good start, Joe.
Did that gentleman get his stuff in front of the planning board?
No, there's no plan.
I haven't seen anything from him yet.
Okay.
He has until Friday.
Okay, we might have something new. I think he's gonna try to get on the docket, but we don't know yet for planning board next time. It's something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Port Harbor Marine is thinking about expanding their docks. After talking with DEP, it's considered an expansion of a marina, which goes to planning board.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a calculation slips per?
I can't remember how many they're gonna add, but they'll have a total of 100, I think it's 120. They wanna do 2 docks out, 92 feet straight out with slits on either side.
Is there going to be parking then?
Well, that's one of the things
calculation?
we're probably gonna have to figure out, cause
Yeah.
I don't know how they park now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know how they do it, but I never see any traffic there, so I don't know how they do it. I don't know if that, he's got that, I don't know if that area where he stores boats in the winter becomes parking in the summer. That's one thing I don't know, but that would be one thing we'd have to address with all these more boats. What's that gonna do to parking? Yeah. So, yeah. He has till the 10th,
Friday,
Friday.
the 11th.
So that would be the only new thing.
Unless Dustin
Oh,
comes
unless
in with
Dustin
one of
comes in,
his.
he's got another one.
I don't know when the man sleeps.
I think that one might, I don't think they're in a really big hurry on that one, but that's off of, around by Patricia Ave, and it abuts Wyndham.
So what I mentioned to Dustin long before your time is when we were doing 2 or 3 subdivisions a night, there started to be a tendency for the developer or the applicant, whatever, to bring in new and revised documentation and hand it out to us at the beginning of the meeting. and it just got to be the point where you had no time
To look at
to look
it.
at it, to view it. So that's why we pretty much had that standard rule that we don't accept anything the day of the meeting. So if you could kind of just,
Yeah, I'll reaffirm that with
Reaffirm
him,
that.
yeah. Yep.
all right, anything else? Ready to go? Oh, you already made the motion?
Yeah.
I missed it?
Yeah.
Was there a second? You said so.
No, there wasn't.
Oh, there's a second now. All those in favor? Done. I already made the motion and I missed.
Okay, welcome to the September 10th meeting of the RSU with 14 Withdrawal Committee. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the June 24th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Next item would be reports of the subcommittees. Marshall, do you want to bring us up to speed on where you are on the budget side?
Sure. I want to make it absolutely clear that what I have to say tonight is dealing with a foundation. It has got nothing to do with where we're going to go with schools. But we have to have some place to start, and this is where we are, okay? So there are several areas that we're looking at.
Marshall, before you get started, do you have the copy that Mark Eastman had? He said he had actually a draft of one that Chris Howe did up, I think, or Dawn Davis, one of those did up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind on that, right?
I need to do this my way for the
No,
first
I'm good with
part.
that. No.
I'm not gonna try to get into Chris's head and to see where he came up with those numbers, because I was not in the same.
I guess I was just looking to where it compares that, is what it
No,
is.
I'm
Nope.
not even gonna, I didn't
Okay.
even do that, yep. Okay, so now,
Boom.
we have, and if this isn't big enough, let me know, I can make it a little bit bigger, I don't wanna lose the integrity.
There you go.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
You just lost the integrity.
Yeah. What we have is the original 2008, 2009 RSD, Raymond School District budget, which I have converted into the appropriate RSU accounting numbers. Okay, so that I can match an apple to an apple. And the one I have up here now, there are 9 different categories, but the one up here now is just the Raymond Elementary School Cost Center 01. It gives you the name of the category, the function number, and what the original budget was in this category, what the original budget was in 2008, 2009. That is where my foundation starts.
What's the talking noise?
I don't know who he's talking to.
It's back, it's the feedback from in there.
Oh, he's got
Oh.
He's on the phone.
speakers on.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm pretty comfortable starting here. And then in this particular column, I was able to clearly identify numbers from the RSU 14 version 6, 2019-2020 budget that directly reflected to cost centers in Raymond. And the first one is the guidance. In 08 it was 68,000, in 09 it was 42,000. The difference being they have taken some of the benefits and they have pooled them into a 900 category. So I cannot come in and say guidance costs us the same as it did last time. The job that we have in front of us is to go back and redetermine what those numbers would be if, in fact, we had a guidance counselor in RES.
So it wasn't the fact that they might have had 1.5 guidance counselors?
I don't know what they did in 09, in 19. I know what we did in 08.
Okay.
Okay? And again, Joe, this is just the foundation. That's one of several hundred questions that we have, is how do we develop a guidance number for 20 and 21, okay? So, is that making sense to everybody here so far? We get into this RES noon monitor. This is one example where there was no noon monitor delineated in '08, but there was in '19. Okay, I don't know what that was. It must have been an overpaid benefit because they didn't carry one forward in '20.
It got
Yeah.
sent to
There's a bunch of that
different-
going on, but reassigned, renamed, recategorized, whatever. There's a bunch of that going on, but we can find that out. But anybody, if we're all okay with the process, is what I'm looking for, then we will go forward here. This is just a synopsis for RES, and the next document is the actual numbers, and this is going to be a little bit harder to bring up. And again, I don't want to lose integrity here. Okay. In the 19-20 budget, the guidance was 68,000, 51,000 in salaries, 15 in benefits, so forth and so on. We can break that out, okay? The benefits in general, right, and I have to use general terms, is running 35 to 40% of the actual salary numbers. So that's an easy number to project out. You take the salary, add 40%, add a cost of living, whatever the union contract says it is, and that's your new number. Okay. So
And are you again comparing 2008 to 2019 right here?
this particular document is 2008 expanded. I just showed you a synopsis the first time. This is still Raymond Elementary, but this is every individual cost center in Raymond Elementary.
Right, so what are the two columns? Oh, sorry,
This is 08 and 20.
okay.
Okay?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. This orange category is numbers that appeared in '08 but do not appear in '20. This is the benefits. In '08 they were lumped. In 19 and 20 they were broken out. PERS, unemployment, health, dental, et cetera, et cetera. There's about 9 different categories they use for benefits. These categories here, the gray ones, were not in '08, but they do appear in 19 and 20, do appear in that budget. So those need to be looked at too. Why was there an increase in group health insurance? Well, the answer is they broke it down, so we can again combine and come up with a number. Okay. The RES nurse's salary was $32,000 in '08. It's not in the 19-20 budget. The reason is they have a lump category called 900, and this is going to be a little bit harder to read. Okay, 900 is those categories that are divided throughout the 7 or 8 schools. I forget how many there are. If you throw Katahdin in, I think there's 8. And they take those costs and they put them into the 900 category, and then we pay 35% or whatever that number is. Okay. So we can go in and because we have these numbers here in this column, we can go back in and we can pull out the numbers here, because the cost centers and the allocations inside the cost centers would be the same. Okay, so we can pull those numbers out. That's a very lengthy process. There's 450 items in this one category. So that's where we are on that. This is another little interesting graph that I did just cause. And this shows where we have been and where we could have gone. FYE 08-09, the school budget that was approved by the town was $8.4 million. Okay. And then when the honeymoon started, the costs went down through economies of scale. And then they came up, and then in 13 the honeymoon was basically over. And that's when the economies of scale lost their impact. And there's a couple reasons for that. So when we get into 15 and 16, you can see over here in this column, we have the, where the cost sharing impacts were, okay? And they went from 45.55 down to 36.64, which is where they are now. And then if we'd have stayed in the union, if we'd have stayed our own, we'd have probably be around $11.3 million. Using a sports analogy, that would be my first baseline.
How did you get to 11.3 million when student population was probably decreasing?
By taking an average of 3% per year, which was the 3%, 3% per year, okay? And taking that out to 11.
And that's just assuming everything stays static?
That's assuming that, yeah, population stayed the same, the state funding stayed the same, teacher out, a bus in stayed the same, that methodology all stayed the same. That's just an eyeball, or a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
So, the actual numbers are in this column. It was projected to be 9.5 million in 2019, but because of the differences in the allocations of real estate values, estate valuations, we took a major hit this year. So it went up to 10.4 million. Okay, so using that as a foundation, in 2 years we would be at 11.4 million, which is pretty close to the 11.3, give or take 3%. Okay, so that's where we are on a first baseline basis. The last 6-year average on the school budget increase has been 4.69%, which is pretty. And this year you can see it was 9.2% because of the valuation. One good reason to withdraw is to get out of that formula. It's hurting us more than it's helping us.
The formula is going to change though too, 2020.
I don't think it's going to be to our advantage when you're dealing with state valuations.
No, because what happens is you can look at it so many different ways, and it was brought up by Chris Howe at one of the meetings, is the contract on this has to be looked at. You looked at it so many years is what it is. In 2020 we'd be renewing it. You can look at student population, you can look at valuations, you can do a mix. It's a mix right now. And so, yeah.
We need to get out of that.
Yeah, it's going to hurt us.
Okay. So that's that.
So can I just ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Feel free. I have a thick skin. Feel free.
No, I don't. No, I'm gonna need thick skin because you're gonna be like, can't you figure all this number stuff out? Can I just ask why you didn't carry column E on line 29, 31, and 33?
I can if you give me a couple.
Because it would just be, I just think we're not necessarily comparing apples to
Not trying to.
apples there.
Not trying to. My conversation is not what it was, it's where it is now. It's in this column.
Because, but I'm saying, so if we're looking at, column F is assuming we don't withdraw.
No,
correct?
column F is exactly where we are financially now.
All right, so what are those projections on 29, 31, and 33? See, you're gonna get really annoyed with me. I need the thick skin.
No, I'm with you.
Okay.
That's why I'm sitting thinking, I'm glad he's doing the budget. And then I catch on later.
I don't do budgets.
But those
if you take
he's taken the average increase year to year.
21.
And he's applied
This
those
is the actual
through
number.
20, 21, and 22.
Yep.
6-year average per year.
Right. But that's the actual number that we are at today.
Now, today.
Right.
And so now your line on 31 and 33 you're projecting out 1 year and then 2 years on that, assuming we stay where we are, because you're basing it off of that $10,000, 10 million. Wouldn't you love it to be 10,000? $10 million number.
We have 3 kids in the school for 10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So how come you didn't do 20, line 31 and line 33? Because E24.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't,
Is that's your first baseline of if we were to
No.
be, then what is E?
No.
What is E? I'm confused.
E was just a historical average of where we could have been, and the purpose of that was to show the impact on the marriage. Right here, and where we went down on the marriage. When the honeymoon was over, the marriage being the Wyndham Raymonard issue. When the honeymoon was over, then we started to get into some, what I would consider normal increases. This column, really, I should do this.
Well, because that column doesn't, when you're comparing both of those, doesn't it show
No,
that
we're not
we-
comparing it. We're not comparing that to that.
But if you're saying that column E is where you would have projected staying as a Raymond school district, right? So isn't this a good marriage then? Aren't we saving $2 million? I'm just not quite understanding this.
No,
Okay,
because
I
you
see
gotta-
where you're going.
But you've got to consider, you've got a decreasing population.
Right.
So.
But
you
higher
would-
special ed costs.
You know,
But you're also assuming only a 3% increase every
Right.
year, when the school district
Right.
has been going up 4.6.
because what has to be established is, okay, if we, the fact is, ultimately, you can extrapolate some of that stuff back out there, but the exercise is to get to say, okay, if we were to have this done today, we know what the budget that we're doing from the RSU. When we blow all this stuff through, we're going to come up with a number. That's the number you want to compare against column F.
And the number that I'm trying to get across to you would be somewhere between 11.3 and 11.5 going into it.
Because that's where
Starting
you're gonna be this year, or
So you're-
next year.
That's where we're gonna be.
So let's say withdrawal would happen in 2021,
2021.
right? And you're thinking we'd be, okay, thank you.
Actually, it would be
2020.
21, 22,
It would be 21,
So that last
22
line,
school year.
that last line.
because we would have to vote in a November election.
Okay.
And it
Just
would be
the budget that we're
everybody votes
preparing would
budget.
take effect in June of '21.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. I don't want this to be, was drawn for an example. It's not a hard number. Please understand.
Oh,
that,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
I can't go out 2 years
I'm just
right
trying to get my brain to process
Okay,
it.
but
which-
I have to have a place, I have to have a target number.
Yeah.
You have- you
So
have-
that's one
Yeah.
target number.
Yeah, understand. I get it now.
You brought up, and it's all your fault, special ed.
Yeah. You cannot target this one. This is nuts.
This is a very interesting category. This is what we've taken out of the 900 basket and pulled into direct special ed costs. And there are 3 categories in there. One is the CIDA director, which is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And in that category, the gifted and talented rests, and I'm not sure why. That, to me, should be a special ed category, because special ed, to me, covers both sides of the spectrum, not just the low side.
Other than the fact that gifted and talented doesn't fall under mandates, doesn't fall under the mandated programs.
Well,
And historically, G&T gets cut in favor
yeah,
of
that's the problem.
special ed.
So anyway, I happen to have a fondness for gifted and talented. I think there's a lot of stuff that could happen in there, but anyway, it's only $300,000, big deal. The Katahdin head of school, that's another example where we may or may not have an impact. Okay, I'm not sure how many of our kids actually go to the Katahdin school, and if the same tuition rate would apply.
Is that the old real school?
Yes.
I was gonna say, because it used to be
Yeah,
up,
the alternative ed school.
they just brought it back to Wyndham, I believe, because it was at Camp Hines.
Yeah, it was at Hines.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is physically.
It's at the high school now. There was
They
no,
did bring it
there
back.
was, they couldn't use a kitchen, or there was no
Oh.
kitchen or something at Camp Hines.
Still being built.
Yeah.
Special ed, as a former special educator, I can say that I can see some possible savings in this area. What I see is they had, I'm gonna go right down to it. Evidently, the school board made a decision to not subcontract out contracted services, and they hired everybody. It appears that their budget reflects, and it's right here, their speech, psychological, occupational, physical therapy, and professional salaries all bulked into, and they're all being paid as normal educators, benefits, the whole 9 yards, stipends, the whole 9 yards. And that was up 18% over the year past. The $2 million in that one category, 700,000 of it would be ours. I'm not sure we would need to hire those people. I know we need those services, but in years past, we've had contracted services.
Oh.
Okay, so I think there could be some savings in there. The other one, and I'm not sure about this one, English language learner, I'm not sure what an impact that would have here in Raymond. I know that in Westbrook, they're really starting to struggle because there's been some big housing develops in Westbrook, and I think they're assuming that that's going to flow into Wyndham, if not now, very soon. I'm not sure Raymond would have an impact, but that's another special ed category that we could take a look at. And there are others. Most of this is in salaries, obviously. There's resource room placements, there's self-contained. I'm not sure how many self-contained rooms we used to have, probably one in each building.
Yeah, I think RES had one.
There's one there now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that would cost us $1 million to run one, or $300,000 to run one
How many,
self-contained room. I don't know. I
how
know
many
what you're gonna
added
ask.
district placements are there?
As far as I know, there's 3, and they call them private placements. And I'm guessing because a private placement is about $75,000 apiece. So there appears to be 3 out-of-district placements. I know we had one at Massachusetts at one point in time, didn't we? Long
Yeah.
time ago.
Actually, I thought we had one in Florida at one time.
Yeah, so they can get expensive. I know in Lisbon, we had one in Rhode Island. It was very expensive. So anyway, I think there can be some savings in there. So what I'm suggesting is that special ed could be looked at for some savings. And I think where we are now is, I will have, going back to the synopsis, we have categories that we need to develop and come out of the system-wide. Can everybody see that okay? Sorry. These are the system-wide costs, which we can bring back into the individual Jordan Small and Raymond Elementary improvement in instruction. That's now called CIA. And it used to be 61. I don't know what it's going to be now. Technology, Kevin Woodbury and somebody from my team will sit down with him and try to develop a budget based on the 08-09 budget and see where we are. There are 2 components to that budget, which I'll get into in a second. There's whatever the school board is going to cost us, the superintendent, transportation budget, out of district transportation was something else, and school nurse and a contingency. So those categories we're going to take a look at. And these numbers over here, school nurse. One of the things on my wish list would be to have considered a school nurse in each building. And I think that, when you're dealing with high school kids, a school nurse, 1 for every 400 is great. But not when you're dealing with young kids. And I have to ask, do we have pre-K yet?
No.
Okay, then we will in probably a year.
It's expensive.
Well, not yet.
Yeah, but they're making it,
even
yeah,
for that, you're gonna
implementing
need a nurse. So if we had a nurse in each building, it would be 80,000. Okay, and
I know
that's,
they did a nurse and a half before, and I know that we had big meetings when I was on the school board regarding kids that were diabetic and the medicines on time because they're little and stuff like that, so yeah.
Okay, did I bore you with numbers? Okay. I want to go back to a couple other things I can talk about. If I can find them. Sorry. This is what I need for information.
Not that.
Do it your way. I need to know how many buses are gonna come forward, because that goes into the maintenance of the buses and it goes into staffing. So at some point in time, and I'll put a date on this later.
Well, it's part of the proposal.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's okay, I understand all that. I'd like to get a student count by grade, I think I can get that
Yep.
relatively quick. I'd like to get a special ed count. I'd like to get their estimate on pre-K, which K was 50 this year, was it 49 or 50?
3 classrooms in Raymond.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
great.
But the number was around 50, so I would assume pre-K would be in that range. It appears that we have.
Probably not, because you have to understand with pre-K, it's typically a half day, so most families
My wife's a
can't
pre-K
take care of
teacher, and
that.
they do two, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
I
20
understand
kids,
that,
yeah.
but to enroll, like, you'd only have half day of coverage, you'd have to find. It's this is some of the work I do statewide, and they're
Yep.
having a really hard time filling pre-K classrooms.
Really?
Public pre-K classrooms,
Wow.
because of childcare
My
issues.
wife's school, it's a lottery system, there were
Yeah.
3 times what the slots were. Anyway, I'd like to get a handle on the pre-K registration. I'd like to know what was in the 19 and what was in the 20 capital budget that wasn't done. Technology budget, system, there's 2 parts to this, as I said earlier, there's a system-wide equipment, what's it gonna take to get into the school, what's it gonna take to provide computer access to the school, and then what actually happens in the classroom. Are we gonna lose what we have as far as equipment, so forth and so on. And then the technology upgrades, there would be town technology upgrades too, that we would need to consider. The maintenance budgets, they speak for themselves. Did everybody go over and see the new playground at RES? I went over it on a Sunday just so I wouldn't see anybody else, and it looks nice. And I said to myself, well, there goes one of the 5 evils for the withdrawal.
Mr. Seymour and his wife donated one of the apparatus, which
Yeah.
was so
The
nice.
Pegasus
Okay.
net.
The what?
There's
The
a
spider net? Yeah.
That was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but good for them.
So transportation, we have, and then the co-curricular, I'm not sure how effective our co-curricular would be. We need coaching, we have PE teachers, I know, but I'm not sure whether we have outside coaching, how far do we go?
I think
And
most of the coaches are from right here, aren't they?
Teachers.
Yeah, they usually volunteer.
Teachers, they get a stipend for.
Right, they get usually teachers do. And then whatever programming comes up with as far as their wish list, so to speak. So that's where I think.
Did you have food and stuff in there?
I have
Robert?
nutrition in
Okay.
another category,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect, thank you.
and that was on my
No, they don't
wish
get-
list.
no. Everyone brings their own lunch.
Yeah.
So
Good luck with that.
As soon as we send our proposal to the RSU, it's technically public information, correct?
In theory, yes, but the
Yeah.
fact is, it's until it comes back after, if there's a counter proposal to it or whatever, it's one of those that, something that's in there may not be in there in the final
Well,
thing, so-
no, I think what I'm trying to do is, if that part of it is at least, then Marshall can have access to it to get some of the information that we talk about in there without.
Let me tell you what my timeline is. I'm gonna have Kevin Oliver take a good chunk of this over the next 3 months, and I'm gonna take another good chunk of it over the next 3 months. And if I can be in a position to say to you in early January, this is where I think we're going to be, then I would be very happy with that.
I don't see.
But I don't need access to anything right now.
I don't see, because I don't see it My gut says, the last iteration of this, I don't think there may be some little minor tweaks and things like that,
Yeah.
but I mean, we were at that 95% level,
Yeah.
So, but I just, and the feeling was not much was gonna happen over the summer, just because.
Yeah, we don't,
Just because it's the
it
summer.
needs some time to
You know,
build.
So, that's the counter proposal's been given to them, but just in these last few days, so they really haven't had a chance to really look at it. So they'll do whatever whatever they're gonna do on there, and then we'll see where we are on that. But I think some of these questions that you've got there, Mark can certainly, if it's
We'll
not
develop
answered
over
in there,
time,
he can
yeah.
get those pretty easily
Mhm.
from Chris, and that they've been, there's been no problem in getting that information up to date, so.
These are some of the assumptions. I have to have a platform of assumptions for a budget, and we have a new pre-K going in 2021. I'm pretty sure that'll happen. No new technology hardware purchases for 2021. Katahdin School remains the same. High school students at state tuition rate. No new bus purchases for 2021. No increase or decrease in professional staff. Can substitute, replace, but not increase or decrease. I figured a part-time SE director at 030 certified, a part-time superintendent at 010 certified. The school choice remains in effect.
On bus purchases, there's been a little bit of a change in the way those have been done in the last number of years, in that based on the price, they're not doing straight purchases, they're doing leases they're doing like, 3-year leases?
Yeah, I think so.
So they're doing
Leases with a buyout at the end, aren't they?
probably.
I would think.
It's either that, well, I mean, I guess, once that finally happens and we have it, then, we're gonna drive whatever, we're gonna be, we'll have the ability to do what we wanna do in a lease, whether we do a buyout or whether you turn it in, do whatever's gonna work there, but, we'll be doing the contracting on the leasing for that, so.
Last thing I want to show you is this little, these are for those people that think we should not withdraw. There's a company out there, can you see that, Kate?
I am the youngest one at this table.
I know, and you've probably got the best eyes.
I just got new eye.
Did you?
I did last week.
Good for you.
So now I don't need
I don't see
glasses.
anything right now. I
I
just see a bunch of
know.
blanks.
I know, I just lost it.
Ooh, good comeback.
There it is.
I didn't lose it for good.
You never do. That's why that backups.
It's tough to look at this and look at that and make sure you can read it. Sorry.
Well, this one has a glare on it. That one doesn't.
Yes, really, yeah.
Ah, I'm not gonna be able to do it.
Go up to view and do page view.
You get the point. You can see it pretty much. There's a company out there called School Digger. And School Digger has a rating system for all the schools in the United States of America. It's incredible. There are several others. The other one, the reason I chose School Digger is because they're not trying to sell you a bunch of real estate like the other ones are. Okay? So I think the other one was, there's a bunch of names out there. But when you look at the ratings of these schools, Wyndham Primary is rated 67th, or they didn't rate Wyndham Primary for some reason, but you get down into the,
Oh,
yeah, that was my rating based on something else, but Wyndham Middle School is 42nd out of 86, or 50 in the 51st percentile. Wyndham High School is 58th out of 114, which is the 49th percentile. And then you look at the two jewels in the system, and they're ours. Okay. Raymond Elementary is 69 out of 254th, and Jordan Small is 22nd out of 86. So what I'm suggesting is that if you take those out, they could be better. RSU 14th is rated 55th out of 148. So I thought that was interesting. And the scoring goes, it went down from last year with the exception of Raymond Elementary and Jordan Small. And again, my source on this is School Digger. Okay. Have a good time. When as a personal note,
So sarcastic today.
I went to New Haven to go to work. And when my wife and I decided where are we going to live, we're not going to live in New Haven, we looked at not where we wanted to live for town, but we looked at the school system. And we bought in this town that had the best school system. It happened to be number 3 in the state of Connecticut at the time. And my kids got a good education from that. And then my grandkids, my son made the same decision. And now they go to the number 9th rated school in Connecticut, which is East Lyme. And it's a great school system. So if we're looking to bring in people, buy houses in Raymond, then we need to have a better school system than 55th ranked. So that's it, unless you want to see something else. I've taken up enough time, I think.
That's good.
No, that's good. So your next steps is when Mark gets back, to get back with him with your list of your question list so that he can.
A lot of that stuff I can get on my own. I'm going to sit down with Nathan and say, Nathan, where are we? Where can we go?
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing with Kevin, which takes a big chunk out of that.
I mean, we know we would save on facility maintenance, on snow plowing.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I mean, we used to.
Just for something that nobody fully knows yet, the RSU was having a hard time getting snowplow contractors.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And so,
I know this.
so one of the people they came to get a bid is us.
Again.
Which, if, I mean, based on where we are now with the new equipment we got for doing our own plowing and whatnot,
Right.
it's a perfect fit to come back in here. But I mean, it's things like that all comes into that one Raymond approach and things like that Teresa's gonna tell us about.
Well, Raymond is actually doing the plowing. Our guys are plowing the school. Yep,
Yeah.
because their last year contract with whoever, they said no, they won't do it. So Raymond's going to be picking up. As Nathan told him, yeah. So regarding the one.
Well, can I
Oh,
just,
sorry.
one more, then I hope you can see this. I'm not sure I can make this any bigger, but this is the debt service schedule that Chris sent over. And I'm not sure I understand this thing. And I'm sorry, if I could make it bigger, I would. Might be able to here.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? I thought Raymond was paid off.
The
Yes.
elementary school, next year.
Says down here that the Raymond RES school was refinanced. I'm not sure what that means.
The what?
RES was refinanced.
Refinanced
Yeah.
for a lower rate.
The state has refinanced the RES debt service, which reduced future payments. I thought that school was paid off.
I thought it was paid off.
It should have been.
That
Yeah.
was, wait a minute.
No, we didn't have any debt on that.
No.
That was
That should have retired last year.
It says May 29, oh, no, sorry. I'm getting it wrong.
This is FY
No, I was
20.
looking at the May 19 too.
Yep.
So,
And the high school was refunded, which I'm not sure what the difference is, refunded and refinanced. I'm not sure what they're using that word for. But assuming that debt service is one of the components I need to look at, and I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
Well, the
we had no
debt service
in there for high
on
school.
RES
Should be zero.
should be zero
Right.
It was a
after
20
2020.
year.
I think we had one.
1999.
I
No,
think we have one
no,
more payment to do
2000 the kids
on
started, 'cause my kids started when they opened in
when we paid
2000.
for the
The year before.
upgrade over here.
Right.
before the, before the RSU, we did an upgrade there, and we bonded that. That bond payment runs, or concludes this year.
Right.
So, so going into any new, separation, we shouldn't have debt service on either of those buildings.
No, we should
What
only
we
have
would
that service
have,
on high
what
school.
we would have, that we still would have, that you have to carry in there, we still have some obligation on the
High school,
Right.
yeah.
Which
But
appears to
not-
be $1.2 million a year.
But not Raymond Elementary, we didn't have any.
Okay, so this needs to be looked at, and then there's a debt schedule and bond schedule and all that stuff. But anyway, I wanted to raise that issue with you folks to see, to plant a seed in there.
Done?
I can be.
Thank you.
There's a lot of work there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work there.
And unfortunately, there's a lot more to go.
Oh, I know there is.
That was a lot.
And I'm literally thinking, thank God I ain't on that group.
Okay.
All right, the One Raymond. We had a good group meet.
Okay if I stay here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a public meeting.
Public hearing,
And you were at this meeting too.
because I want to ask you something afterwards, too.
I don't want to be 3 selectmen in the same room without.
That's a public meeting,
It's
so.
a public
Okay.
meeting, and it's taped, so.
All right, so we had a good meeting, and one of the things that we can, like the plowing, the facilities maintenance, we kind of looked at it as if we have one person that oversees all the buildings, and we can have like the sub people underneath of it, like, how they had like Donna or whatever over in the school and that type of thing. Also with mechanic, we have a mechanic in now, and then we could bring another one in to be able to fix the buses and still do all the trucks in town and stuff like that. Technology is we can combine and figure out what comes with us, if we do withdraw, and that we could have like Kevin or whatever talk to Mr. Hickey. Or was it Mr. Hickey that was there before? He's still there, right? Yeah. Okay. So that way we know town staff. Between the town and the school, we can have an accounting person that does payroll for both. We can do, it would probably be a payroll person that does that, and then we'd have probably an accounting person and a half to be able to do both. The human resources, whether you're school or town, it's still where we would be able to cover both of those instead of having 2 in the town.
But you're assuming you will have the same benefit package for the school and the municipality.
Which we don't now.
That's the only way you can do one HR person.
That's what I'm getting to now. Exactly. So what we would have to definitely look at is, with the number, what can we offer our town and our staff that we would negotiate because of the contracts is what it is. And that would be we have, unemployment liability and the medical and dental would be in there too. Lease agreements on equipment. We could probably get deals as far as the schools go and town.
You would have to think about the retirement plan,
Mm-hmm.
because teachers have state retirement.
Well, we would, because of where they are on their contracts, like here's the contract, we would, they would be negotiating that already, do you know what I mean? And then we would do that, but possibly taking what we have for the school employees to do the town and see what we can do together.
Right.
You know what I mean, to save on that type of thing. You can buy bulk and like the with the electricity, the oil. One thing that we're waiting on and trying to play out to see too is solar panels for the fire, the fire station, and I think the building right down here. But we said that if we got the schools back, that has that top flat building. Might be a really good possibility as far as looking into that. Same thing with purchasing for oil. That would be a really good one on that. So it's kind of like the central office that was there before would be the business manager and the special ed director. I look at the special ed director is to me is in a category all themselves. They really are, because each kid
Each kid is different.
it is, and you don't know and you've got to work, you can't pick up a paper and check the boxes, you gotta look
No.
what that child needs. And I think that's an issue that goes on now, is too many people look at that.
And that, well, that's why you need an 030 certified, because you gotta know what to put in each box. And a lot of these 282s don't have them.
We had a dedicated,
But she was
special ed
not
director
certified.
we had.
She was not certified.
Yeah, no.
she was working on it, and it was a straight yes. It was a situation,
We need it
shouldn't have been the
certified.
way it was, but.
But, I don't know, I think literally just what we can do is just, I think breaking it down when we start getting it back, and seeing, I think, how the buildings are used. Do you know what I mean? That maybe what we can do is utilize maybe some of the building that we had talked about before a while ago several times, is like, if you've got a whole wing in the school that somebody's not, that you're not using but you're paying for, you know, what can we do to add to that for the community? You know what I mean?
Well, and the gym, especially the gym.
Yeah. So,
Right now, I guess we paid somebody pays to use the gym, which is ridiculous, but.
Yeah, because it lost,
Right.
well, it
Well-
lost what was supposed to happen, because the gym,
Right.
the town bought the gym.
Right, it was totally separate from the school, the town had
Right.
control,
Right.
well,
and then
Now
the
we don't.
RSU took it over.
Right.
because one of the things that we're investigating now is, you know, like the communications person that I brought up at the select board meetings, and because of getting word out to people too. But, you know, when you've got a school that will not allow Girl Scouts to come in to just advertise, and Alyssa Messer and somebody else, and I can't remember who the other person was, they had to fight, and they got it. They could have it on opening night, but that's the only thing. They could just hand out pamphlets and stuff, and to me, keeping kids busy is important instead of just having them sit around watching the TV. But when you don't allow this stuff to come into the schools, and I think that's going to be, you know, as a town, you know, working together with that One Raymond thing, is you got to pull in all the different extracurricular stuff too, is what it
The
is.
recreational part of it.
The
Yep.
Girl Scouts are not allowed in the schools anymore?
No, they're allowed to school, they're not allowed to hand out pamphlets.
Yes.
You can't post,
But you have to pay- you have-
can't post, things on there for anything other than school.
You can if the PTO approves it.
The PTO has cut back a lot of stuff too, if you noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to draw
Yeah.
the line somewhere. You can't have a million things going home or everything gets lost in, as a current parent, if I have a million flyers
Well,
coming home,
yeah.
that will get lost in the shuffle.
Well, but I think like opening night, it would be great, and I know that they had to fight to get that in on that one too. But I think, you know, and I, just from what I'm understanding to the school, is upset with the PTO putting information out there that they don't want the PTO putting out. Don't know the whole story behind that yet, but I don't know. I think it's got to be. I know it's two towns working, you know, as one school district, but we got to get it back. I think the community's got to be able to get it out there, because like right now, like I know, just for instances, they used to send stuff home, soccer sign up, rec sign up, and as you get 50,000 pieces of paper. I remember that. But what happens is then you have one little kid that says, oh no, my kid didn't get signed up. So guess what? I'm on texting, hey, who's done, you know, pre-K, boom. And you got the kids signed up, you know, but it gets community involvement is what it does. So
It would be nice to get back to a small town feel
Oh, yeah.
where you use common
Especially-
sense.
Yeah. The recreational opportunities that we've lost over the years are incredible.
Like what?
Ski trips, using school buses.
yeah, they don't allow that anymore. They haven't allowed that for a while.
RSU won't allow the use of school buses to take the kids up to the mountain. So that so instead what they had to do is they had.
Oh, I know my daughter did the ski.
Yes, they had to go and rent them and that got cost
It's cost
prohibitive, so.
prohibitive, yeah. So if you had a school bus,
I know, like Saturday morning
Swimming
basketballs and
lessons.
stuff like that too, just because it comes out of the kids' pockets is what it is, as far as renting it and stuff like that.
They
There's-
still do rec basketball on Saturday morning?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I think they have to pay for that.
do they do adult
For-
volleyball at all, or some of those activities they do in other
Yeah,
communities.
but how do you know the school's the reason why that's gone? Like, that's what I'm,
They
if
want-
I'm on programs, then let's hear these things that we wanna
because
add.
Because they're gonna charge you to play volleyball.
Yeah,
which
is what
not
it is,
right.
and they
It's
said they
not
don't
right.
have that, they said some parents right now, can barely, buy the well, they give out the uniforms or whatever, but they can't afford it to pay the extras to sign the kids up, is what's happening,
Well, they take them
rec-
somewhere else.
So rec before, well, where are they gonna take them that's free? Where else
Well,
are they gonna
the-
take them to do a rec program that's free?
Well, gym use used to be free.
Mm.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, I wanted
As
to
long
hear
as you
what
were
this was.
here within the hours of the custodian staff. You know what I mean? Like if you were here like after 8 or whatever, but we always clean up. Gosh, there would be like Odyssey the Mine in each of the rooms. There would be Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. I mean, there used to be a lot of rooms filled up that you would actually have to like look for an empty room to be able to use, different functions and stuff like that. And I guess I want to see that back.
The argument, I have to come back on the initial one. The argument is that I can't take them somewhere else for free. It's not valid.
No, but you just said that take them somewhere else, so I was just,
Yeah,
I'm not
and you're gonna have to
arguing
pay.
that, I'm just asking where are they taking them that's at zero cost?
No, you're adding at the zero cost. They're gonna have to pay to take them somewhere
Oh,
else. Why would they have to do that here, when we own the gym?
But she made a really good point too.
Yeah, but then if you're gonna pay to take them somewhere else, why wouldn't you pay to have them play Raymond Rec?
Because you're already paying for taxes and you're already paying for school. That this is the school
Should be a town
town,
service.
the school community school.
So
is what
then
it is.
maybe the select board should put that as part of a benefit, that you'll pay the rec fee for all kids, like, if it's a town service.
Why should
Why should it be the
Supporting the
select
rec fee
board?
already.
I-
The budget, we're supporting the rec department.
So let,
There used to be men's basketball up
Yeah.
here on Sunday night.
Yeah.
We walk into the gym,
No,
we
that
play
I
for 2
understand.
hours.
That I understand.
Didn't cost us a thing.
And I get that, I totally get that, but I was just saying the take them somewhere else and you still would have to pay for them, so why would you take someone somewhere else if you can play right here?
Well, that's exactly the point we're making.
Well, it never used to cost
Right.
anything, is the
So
point.
you had rec for little kids and it cost nothing? There was an
To-
organized recreation program
And you
that
didn't have
cost
to
nothing.
pay to rent the gym, yes.
To rent
But
the
it
gym
costs
or use the
nothing to
buildings,
the
nothing.
families.
Well, it costs to register the kid, whatever
Yes,
that was.
each
So
kid
it was
has-
not free.
I mean, it was a nominal.
But it wasn't what you guys have now as a price list. There's a
Yeah,
price
for
list for
gym
everything
rental.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to use the gym and stuff like that. But she brought up a really good point. She's on program, so she's looking to add. See,
But
Fine.
that gym was
Add 'em.
paid for by the town,
Right.
voted on at a 1985, 86 meeting row.
Yep.
To put in that size gym.
I'm not
for the
arguing
town
that.
to
I'm just
use.
saying if there was a free recreation basketball program before, then let's factor that into our programs.
Go ahead, put
If
it in.
there was, I get the bus thing for the ski program, let's factor that stuff in. I mean, maybe it's free to our families, which is outstanding, but there's still gonna be a cost.
I would assume, Kate, that you, being responsible for programming, would come up with a nice big list.
but let's kick back to Joe's
Then we
here.
get back to reality,
I mean, like
And what, it all gets cut?
No.
Because it costs too much, and then my list is what we have, stuff we have now.
I think that $11,500,000 that I threw up on the board is way over what it would cost us to run these schools.
Even though you projected that if we stayed in,
would
right
be
now, we'd be at
11.3.
11.3,
Well, that's
but
it.
in
And I
2
think
years,
that's
we'd be
way
at
over.
11.4.
If we stayed in, I think
Yeah,
we'd be
but that
bringing in a lot less.
projection is somewhat meaningless because it's taking a fixed number and just
Right.
escalating.
It's making an
it,
assumption
which is
that I
not-
can't
Which
see.
is not doing
Right.
what he's doing now, which is saying, okay, based on population, head count and whatnot, using those figures, we're going to establish what that number is. Going forward, yes, you're gonna have escalators on there, but it's not gonna be escalated from the fact when we had all those, everything was completely full, you had 3 grades of each and things like that. So, that's why you can't take that and say that that's an absolute. All he's
Well,
done,
they're
all
projections,
he's
I know they're not
all he's done there
absolutes.
is taken some things to create some baselines that
Right.
says, okay,
That's all it is,
you
a
know,
baseline.
and then at the end, once everything, once he's established, once they establish, okay, here, based on inputs from the school, based on this and what, here's where we feel it will be. And now, recognizing that going forward, yes, that's gonna increase.
No, I understand
Or
what a
decrease.
projection is. I know
'Cause I
that
can
that's
see
not
some
the actual.
decreases.
It's just, if we're using projections for both comparisons, the math doesn't make sense still.
Well, unless you have the exact student population count of each grade.
Which I don't have.
Right, I don't know how you can make those projections.
I just threw a percentage out there
Right.
based on historical.
Well,
stumpers.
right,
That's it.
exactly.
Right,
That's
I
it.
understand that.
And that's just saying if
Totally
you have
get it.
status quo, no growth, you have same number of kids, this is where you would be.
Right.
But we don't have,
No,
Some
I
of the
get it. Oh, I
details
totally,
behind
I
it.
understand that they are projections. I totally get that. I really, really do. But
I'm
I'm
not sure
saying,
you do, because it's not a projected number. It's
you
not
just said
meant-
they're projections.
It's not meant to be a projected number, it's meant to be a baseline number. If we did nothing, we would be here.
You did.
But it's a projection.
All right, it's project, okay, I'm not gonna beat around this. Okay.
But it's,
Okay.
you know, but if it's a flawed projection, because it
Right.
doesn't account, it does not account for a decrease in population, it doesn't account for all those
So then
things.
you-
so-
School population, school.
You can easily get those enrollment numbers.
Yeah.
And we can have a non-projected, projected number.
But I mean, what he had to do was establish some bases that you can work from.
Get a ball,
Because,
yeah, gotta
yeah.
get on the field somewhere.
You
Right.
either,
Oh, I get it.
you either start with a blank sheet or you start with something that people can throw stuff at and say, I don't like that. Now you work from there, and that's what
Which
he's,
is
you know.
It's fine. Told you that thick
Let's go
skin.
back to Joe's comment that keeps coming up too, is I know the town paid for the gym. I know the gym is supposed to be there, but in any situation where money is raised and something is donated to the town, there's still cost to maintain it and run it. So they do have to charge for the lights and the heat and the well-being, and I get that. What I want to see is it more open back up to the public again, is what I'm saying. So on that one, didn't mean to open up another can of worms on that, but I think there's a lot that we can save. So we're not having our cleaning services. You know, we have the cleaning right now, and I think it's still possibly it was, and it got dropped. But we have someone clean the town offices and the schools. We can have somebody, share on that services and stuff like that. There's a lot that each individual organization is doing that we can combine.
Because what we do, what she's talking about there was that was part of that one Raven concept, and what happened. We did some of the maintenance there. They had some of the custodial people doing the cleaning in there. So
Yeah,
And
each side
they
was getting
dropped
something
that.
from it.
Well,
Everybody was happy.
they took away the plowing from us, which was I think we were only charging like $7,000.
they
And
took
then
it away to pay more.
pay a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Made a lot
now,
of sense.
Yeah, I
but
think
now we
I
got
think
it
the figure
back
that I
again,
heard
and I don't
was
even know what the cost is.
45 or 49,000.
Yeah.
It was like big, huge.
It's amazing.
All right. And so,
We
from a
have not-
programs you haven't met yet,
Nope.
so you're going to try and now that people are back in town.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little overcommitted professionally right now, but I will do my best to. I think if we can just go with a baseline of what we have for programs in place, then let's work
But
off
it's,
that.
I mean, the thing to look at it is say, okay, here's where we're at today. Where do we think we want to be, and can we get there? Because, if all you're doing, if all you're going to do is just, do a rubber stamp of what you got now, you're missing some opportunities.
I'll take input. I honestly don't have a lot of time to put effort into something that I don't believe in. And I'm not willing to take a lot of time away from my family. That's really important to me to do this, so.
So you don't think it's valuable that we could have a better system here?
Oh, I do. I'm just saying finding time right now
Okay,
is
but,
is
I mean,
hard.
'cause, if people don't see value in doing something that's can be better, then, that's fine. But never complain later. Never complain when all of a sudden everything explodes and the services get worse and things get bad. You lose your ability to complain about it.
Well,
That's what they have to understand.
let me throw something out there then, and don't mean this the way that it's gonna sound.
I'll say it. Want me to say it then?
What Joe meant to say was?
No, yeah, but
Marshall told Joel to say.
and I respect your decision.
Oh, no, I totally
really
understand
do.
getting pushback, I'm fine.
Nope.
I really am.
What I'm asking for then, because we are now to the point that we have moved on to the next step as to what we have to give to the public. And I don't feel from your comment now that you can give that 100%. So I am requesting that the school board then put somebody else in this position.
I don't know that you're gonna
But they have to, because it's not fair to the public, it's not fair to us, to the work. So I am requesting that something else be done then. And it's not against you, please understand that.
I'm
Because you just said that for something you don't believe in, you don't want to put the time in. And right now, what the people are griping about and complaining about is the lack of programs and services.
Right.
And you've got the ball on that one. And I think what you're doing right now is just saying, hey, I'll get to it when I get to it. And again, please don't take it the way that it's sounding.
No.
Because it's not. But I need to know that. I know you were forced to be on here. I get that. I understand that.
As with the other two members.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, you know,
But still.
but I mean, honestly, no one from that school board's gonna come in here with an open mind because
No, they're not.
they've been brainwashed
Right.
by the administration
Right.
of the school. So.
Not only the administration of the school.
Yeah, and
So,
other people.
Yeah.
But I think we just need to move forward.
I know that, and that's what I'm saying, but how do we do that when we can't even have some kind of a presentation?
Then what we do, I'm gonna put a date out there, I need something from programming by December 31st.
That's
If I can't have it, then I'm gonna
think
put
that's
out
great.
what's there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I understand. No, and again, I'm not, I had to drive up to Augusta today, spent a lot of time thinking in the car. I'm not trying to be a real pain in the you-know-what. I'm really,
No.
really not. It's just something, there's a lot going on right now for me, work-wise, and
And so even in that case too, maybe it might be better for Anna or Janny to.
yeah, well, and then, but
to-
everyone's busy. Everybody's busy.
I know,
So,
we all are,
I
yeah, right.
I totally
so-
recognize and respect that, so.
So, but I guess what I'm
I
thinking
like
is.
Marshall's, I'm,
Okay.
yep.
December 31st, programming. Or
I
I
just think
move
that's
on.
what people need
Yeah.
to
Yeah, no,
see.
And no complaining. If I move on, no complaining.
Hey,
See what happens when you cross over to the dark side of the select board? You become not. That's what I told myself. I'm swearing it. Like when he
I mean,
swears
workshop,
that.
we've been kind of integrating that in there, so there's,
What?
I say, we've had a workshop session in there, but essentially it's what we've been discussing, so. Next meeting,
Mark said, I think, October 15th and the 13th.
No, he had 2 days that.
He couldn't do it, is what I mean, yeah, 15th or
Dan,
22nd
not
maybe, or?
Mark, Dan,
That was Dan.
yeah.
I'm gone from the 20th through the 24th.
October?
Yeah.
I'm going from
He
the
can't do
8th
the
to the
15th or the
16th.
22nd.
Which one?
He can't do the
15th or the 22nd, he can't do.
Yeah, I can't do that,
looks
right?
good.
No, I can't do it from the 8th to the 15th.
Well, the 8th is the select board anyway. 8th is select board.
I'm
so-
leaving for Canada next morning.
So it would have to be either, well, the first is kind of too close. So it would be the 29th.
Yeah, I'll be out of town.
What about the 17th?
I can't do that either.
Well, yeah, 'cause that's Columbus week, so. Well, I mean, Dan said, would
The-
he s-
15th and 22nd.
so what about the 21st?
I'm out.
Yeah.
You're out?
I can only really do Tuesdays. Unless it's a Wednesday that we don't have a school board, but that's even, can be touch or go.
I'm open the whole last week of October, so.
Is that Tuesday then, the last week?
The
I'm out of
29th,
town
but
that,
she's
I'm
out
out
of
of
town.
town, sorry.
that whole week you're out of town?
I'm out of town Tuesday to Wednesday.
What about the first week in November?
But I could do the 28th of October. That Monday opens up.
Did you say you're going, Joe, the 28th?
No, I'm good the 28th.
So the 28th would work for people?
Yeah.
Okay, 28th. Subject to change. 6 o'clock still work for people?
6 o'clock, works for me.
All right. If there's nothing else, meeting is adjourned.
Great. The mic shut off?
Okay, welcome to the October 28th RSU 14 Withdrawal Committee meeting. I call the meeting to order. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from September 10th.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Second item is reports from the subcommittees. Marshall, you want to
Okay,
bring us up to speed on where you are on the budget side?
I will. The Budget Committee is almost at a standstill at this point in time. We have built our foundation budgets as I reported out last time. We have put in contact the two technology departments, Kevin Woodbury and I believe his name is Mr. Hickey from Wyndham. And they are communicating on several different levels, the classroom technology portion and the overall interface technology portion, and also the website is up for discussion there. So that is underway. I have not heard from Kevin. I know he's working on it as diligently as possible, and we will hear sometime. Kevin Oliver from our Budget Committee has been assigned to work with Nathan White, our Public Works Department, to develop some operations and maintenance data. And that will take a little bit. Fortunately, we have the numbers going back to 2008, 2009, so Nathan can build on those numbers to see where we are as far as building and structure and so forth. I'm not sure where we stand on capital budgets. That would be one of my requests, to see if the capital budgets that the school board put in the last couple of years were actually fulfilled, or if they weren't, and do we need to eat some of that stuff. As far as going forward, accounting and finance section, our town treasurer Kathy Ricker has started to look into that. The Sebago school system has been suggested as a possible source of information, and there are other items out there that we're looking at. Okay, so that's where we are. Where we need to be is, my job next would be to take a look at the special ed section. I'm experienced in special ed, and to take a look at that budget. We need some programming information, and we need some nutrition information. I think, we all have ideas on nutrition. But in order for me to go any further on some of this stuff, I need to get some information from the agreement that is in process, because I'm kind of at a roadblock. For example, I'd like to know how many buses that we're going to inherit and so forth and so on. So that's what I have for tonight. Now, with your permission, I'd like to open it up to the audience. If they have any direct budget questions, I'd be happy to field those. If not, fine. Okay, but give them an opportunity to. Okay.
Any questions from?
Okay, then I'm finished.
And you're working with Mark on.
Mark is guiding me through this very choppy waters.
He has the information you're looking for on the number of vehicles and things like that.
I have not directly asked that question without your permission. If I will, then I will ask those questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
that information.
I don't want to go inside a negotiation without your permission, so, okay.
I think you're really looking at continuing current staff and getting
some advice from programming as to what additional staff might be necessary?
There's an area that I'm not going to look at, and that is regular instruction. I think the union contract will tell me what that's going to be, and I have a copy of the new union contract, so I'm not concerned about that at all. I'm only concerned about things that would change. Okay. Special ed, for example.
Do you have are you foreseeing how you think those would change?
I'm
or-
not going to guess.
Currently, we are paying, what, 10.4 million to Wyndham?
We are
to the
paying
RSU?
10.4 million to Wyndham.
Right. So you're basing...
To the RSU, I should say.
To the
Let's
RSU.
Be clear, yeah.
And so you're basing your current budget on that 10.4 million?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir. I learned a long time ago that zero budgeting is a lot better than building budgeting.
Okay.
So I'm trying to zero budget this.
Okay.
Okay. And I think it'll work better that way, especially in the area of special ed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just so people know, we currently are paying 10.4
We are paying
million.
$10.4 million per year for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how many students is that? Around
I don't have that
700?
number right off my head,
And I think we
458.
want to be clear that that's to serve our students, I mean,
Right.
the students that live here. It's not to
Right.
serve other students in.
No, that's not true. It's to serve, that's the high school also.
That's your entire share?
That's
That's our
share.
entire share, based on valuation.
Right.
Right, which
Right.
went up,
And
which went,
population.
right,
Right.
which went up 921,000 this year.
Because of valuation, that's correct.
Right.
Right.
Well, valuation plus increase in budget.
Yeah, they built in some number in budget, but most of it
But I
was
mean,
valuation.
because our valuation went up last year.
$1 million.
Do we know how that would affect Title I funding? Or-
Historically, we haven't gotten much back.
I'm sorry, what was the question, so I can hear it?
How valuation would affect our Title I funding at all?
I mean,
I don't think-
historically, we didn't,
No.
I think we were a
In the-
5% receiver.
Yeah, I mean, in the last full budget that we had on our own, we only got about $200,000 or $300,000 from the state.
The ED,
She's talking about, she's actually talking about entitlement
Right.
Yeah.
funding beyond general
Right.
purpose aid.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
probably should look, I'd be happy to look into that, Marshall, if you'd
well,
want.
we asked for and received an ED 279 to Raymond only, and it showed 0. So I'm not anticipating a bunch of state help here at all.
Hey, you still look like, kind of on schedule for January.
The two balls in the air that I'm not comfortable with right now, because I haven't heard anything, is technology. I really don't want to push too hard on that, because
Yeah.
it's a very complicated, and my fear was they come out, oh yeah, it's $8 million, fine. Well, they're throwing me a number, and I don't want that to happen. And I don't think Kevin would do that. I think Kevin would dig in and find out for sure. So technology, December 31st is my cutoff date. I need to move forward on a couple things after that. Programming be one, operation and maintenance. I think we can have a handle on that, but technology might be a little kicker. Okay. And then I can start getting into things like special ed and transportation and things. Transportation is going to be pretty easy. We have 5 buses. This is what it's going to cost, and that's the end of that. But special ed is a little different.
More questions on where we are budget?
Nothing from the clan of 4 over there?
Oh, I can, do I need to?
Go ahead, please, please.
Do I need to go to
Yes, you
the,
do.
Yeah, you do, because that way it gets, that way
Do I need to
the
do
mic
my
pick,
name
the
and
mic pick.
address?
Yes, you
Yeah.
do. Social security number, date of birth.
Susan Brackett, 47 Plummer Drive. So I was just listening to the Title I piece, and my understanding is that we currently receive a lot of Title I funding as a result of being combined with Wyndham. And so if we were to separate, then we would most likely lose that funding, and that would impact the students greatly.
First off, I'm not sure how much we receive without looking at the formula. And second off, I cannot see us cutting out that portion of funding just because we don't get it from the state. I think that would be unreasonable of us to do that. And I see that being built into a normal budget without state reimbursement. The other one is Medicare, Medicaid, and special ed is the same type of issue. Okay.
Other questions?
Thanks.
There we go, yeah, good follow-up. So the program subcommittee did meet. Susan is on that committee, so feel free to go back up and do all your credentials if I say something wrong. You know, some of the things that it's really helpful to have Susan on this committee and part of this work because one, she's in the community, she's a teacher, she was part of this when we were just Raymond and part of it now. So, I mean, the wealth of, talk about historical knowledge with all of this, which I'm certainly lacking, she has it, so it's great to have that. She was also able to kind of talk to some of the teachers and kind of get their feedback for what they're thinking when it comes to withdrawal. I do think it's really important for folks to know that there's, from that side of what we're hearing, there's no teacher that says we should do this. There's no teacher that wants it back the way it was before. And it was certainly mentioned that it was a rocky, forced agreement for a while, but things have really worked out well. So some of the programming things that we did talk about, we didn't mention this one, but I thought of it after. The Jumpstart program and the Bridge program are amazing programs for our youngest learners. So it's a summer program where they get bused to Wyndham to get a head start, to get a jump start on their letters and sounds and readings. I mean, it just really sets such an amazing foundation for them, which we all know is really key. And then that Bridge program, which is from kindergarten to first grade. And I know that the school board would be happy to provide numbers of how many Raymond students that they are servicing with that. But that would be something that we would certainly want to make sure that we don't lose for our youngest kiddos, because in my line of work, I work in education, that is so important. The district just implemented a new math program, which is going over relatively well, I think. Change is hard. So that's something that we want to make sure that we have budgeting for. There's a writing program. We have the Lucy Calkins writing program that has been in place for a while. It's the writing program that our students also would use if they went on to Wyndham High School. So to get rid of that would put our kids at a disadvantage. I mean, it's a wonderful program, a disadvantage to the high school that they will most likely be heading on to. There are reading programs, spelling programs. The middle school supplies all of the kids with an agenda when they get there. Again, I get it that these are little things, but they certainly add up. Some other things, the special education room uses a program called Linda Mood Bell for literacy and math. One thing that's really, I thought was great was our music program. We have one of the few string music programs in the state. And all of our music and band instructors are trained experts that are being employed full-time. So as you're starting to look at budget stuff, if we're looking at a part-time music teacher or band instructor to split between two schools, you're going to lose that person that's really put gotten their education in this as far as being professionally trained. And in the past, it was a part-time position that was really this revolving door. I mean, that's just in my opinion, and you all know where I stand on this, is not something that we want for our kids. Our kids at the middle school level have access to sports that they would not if they were at JS. They have swimming, they have field hockey, they have skiing. These are all competitive level sports that would be like at the middle school level, not recreation sports.
Are you classifying those as extracurricular?
Yeah.
Or are they programming?
Well, I mean, I think all of this is part of what we want for our
Well, I'd like a
education.
definition on what you're doing, because some of this you have, I mean, I agree with the bridge program. Okay, my wife is involved in that. But that's programming, that's not extracurricular. So if you're going to bring in sports, then would you
Yeah, but
define
we
that
also
as?
talked last time about, you know, there was a complaint that now our kiddos have to pay to do recreation, and that used to be in this, they have to pay to get the ski bus.
Yeah, I think there was a misunderstanding.